Council Costigan.
Here.
Council Tassinari.
Here.
Council Milan.
Here.
Council Dimes.
Present.
Council Romano.
Present.
Council Reardon.
Here.
Council Finn.
Here.
Vice President Swope. President Lettieri.
Seeing a quorum, please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes from the June 2nd meeting have been circulated. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion by Councilor Romano, second by Vice President Swope. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No, the ayes have it. General information recommendations, we do not have anything right now. Public comment is open. Karen.
Karen Chavez, Precinct 2. As we know, the finance season is over, and as a member of the Finance Commission, I just want to make a couple of comments. We did end up seeing 8 departments. Every department was invited in, but 8 came. I made a couple of observations reading the book that we got, which you can see was quite thick. And I'd just like to share a couple of things. Just bear with me for a minute. I noticed that the library has finished up with making 3 study rooms that will be painted and carpeted. 2 of the rooms will accommodate 1 to 2 people, and number 3 is a handicapped access, which will hold up to 6 people. They also finished the walkway out back here with help from the Commission on Disability. The Council on Aging, they were able to purchase a minivan, and the reason for the minivan is they have that big bus. The minivan now is allowing them to take more of the senior centers, the seniors, to different medical appointments that otherwise would tie up the big bus. And a lot of that money came from grants through Mass Elder Affairs. Veteran Services, they just continue to amaze me what he does. He just makes sure that every veteran in this town gets what they're entitled to, their families get what they're entitled to, and the widows of the veterans, or the widowers of the veterans, get what they're entitled to. Then I looked at enterprise funds. The rink, the goal and down the rink now is to improve the locker rooms and the lobby and the concession stand, and to make everything ADA compliance, which as we know is not. And those bathrooms, some of them are older than some of the people sitting at the table, and they really need to be updated. Parks and Rec. Of all the issues that they had over the years, Sean has really shown me that he's done a great job. They were able to get the second set of pickleball courts in. They assisted the Winthrop Little League with new dugouts. He's expanded his full-time day summer camp, and he expanded his February and April vacation programs, and they also relocated their office again to the E.B. Newton and their programs to the PSA, and they've done it in a timely and I think efficient way. And by the way, it's the 3rd move in about 15 years, which is a big deal. The Harbor Master, they were able to incorporate with the Winthrop Police Department, so now that is, it's still an enterprise fund, but it comes under the auspices of the Harbor Master. I'm not trying to leave anybody out. I have Director Callis sitting next to me, and I can't say enough about what he and his people do. And it's the same with everybody else. And I just wish that more people would come to the finance meetings, because we don't only talk about money, we talk about what they've done, what they want to do, and what they think they can do within their budget guidelines. It's really too bad. Like I say, this book is a wealth of information, and if you don't read it, shame on you.
Thank you, Kim. Anything on? Okay. Old business, fiscal 27 budget. These motions were all brought to the table at the last meeting. We'll let the Chair of Finance, Councilor Tassinari, go through these if anyone has amendments or please bring them forward. And I'll pass the floor to Councilor Castaneda.
Thank you, Council President. First motion on the docket today is adoption of the annual general fund operating budget for fiscal 2027. The motion reads, in accordance with the charter of the town of Winthrop, I move that the town council vote to adopt the town manager's proposed annual general fund budget for fiscal 2027 as set forth in the town manager's budget submission, inclusive of personnel salaries and operating expenses set forth therein, and that to meet said appropriations, the town shall raise and appropriate, as well as appropriate from the following other available funds, the sum of $68,361,037, or take any other action relevant thereto. The additional funds below read as such: $39,522 cemetery lots fund 584, $5,000 from cemetery perpetual care fund 910, $75,000 from maintenance stabilization fund fund 965, $48,000 from the regional 911 fund 903, and $608,584 from intra-fund transfers. That is the first motion.
Okay, do I have a second for that motion? Second by Councilor Romano. Motion is on the table. Again, this is the operating budget, a little bit different than the total budget, which we will go over enterprise funds later. You add in the enterprise funds, it's approximately $84 million. So this is the day-to-day operations of the town right now. Any discussion? Councilor Tassinari.
Thank you, Council President. I'm gonna do this just once. I'm gonna thank the Finance Commission once again. Every member contributed, every member showed up, and every member went through that giant book that Ms. Chavez just mentioned. It's a lot of work, and again, thank you, Karen, for all your years of going through that book and keeping everybody on task. And big thank you to the directors, thank you to the town manager, thank you, Sarah Johnson, Robin Powers, and we really appreciate all the hard work that went into this. So I just want to say thank you before we get through all the reading of all these other motions.
Thank you. Vice President Swope.
I don't know if this is an appropriate time to bring this up, but under the summary of the town manager's FY 27 budget recommendations, the issues here. Is this appropriate to bring up? Okay, fixed costs versus discretionary costs. That's what I don't quite understand in the general fund budget of the 68.4 million, representing an increase of 1.9. So if these all, I would like to have a breakdown of the fixed cost versus discretionary costs.
Are you reading this from the FinCom's report
Town manager's budget message.
or town manager's budget?
Yeah.
Town manager's budget.
Okay. I can send it to you. I mean, fixed costs are mostly, health insurance, things we don't have any discretion
Control.
in, property insurance,
Right.
we don't have any discretion in that. Salaries, we don't have any discretion in that.
Well, is that true?
Well, for unions mostly, yeah. We have employees that are not unionized, so they're employed by the discretion of the town manager. So at his discretion, I guess, would you call it discretionary for them? I mean,
Yeah, for the non-union personnel, the
For the
unions
non-union
are
personnel.
bound by the collective bargaining agreement.
but there's a lot of costs that, retirement, that's legally mandated, we don't have any discretion in that.
So what portion of our budget do we have any control over? In
Technically, you've
terms of
got control
discretionary.
over the whole budget, you can vote whatever amount you want, but.
No, I'm trying to figure out, I know we have to appropriate money every year for, our budget.
Mhm.
But what is the difference between what we already have committed to And then what we have any discretionary funds over, if there may not be any, I don't know. I just don't know the answer to that.
I mean, we, you know, certain programs, I mean, certain, you know, initiatives the department heads wanna bring forward that we decide to fund, like, you know, we didn't need to replace the grant money for the health department, but we chose to do that. You know, we could have chose to make those cuts. But I mean, as far as, you know, though that's the monies that you cut, I mean, we're legally obligated to, like Sarah said, the pensions, the CBA contracts and the collective bargaining agreements with the unions, a few things like that. I mean, utilities, we have to pay if we wanna keep the lights on, you know, those kind of things we have to pay. But yeah, we have some leeway in there with the programming, I mean, we could, you know, tell Stevie, you know, we're not gonna fill those other positions and cut those out. You know, those kind of things, I mean, yeah, we could choose to do that, I wouldn't advise it, but certainly we could, you know,
Sure.
we have some discretionary on that, yeah.
I'm just asking, I know that because we go through this budget every year,
Yep.
but frankly, do we have any opportunity to make decisions? Or are we locked in to fixed costs? And that's what I'm asking.
Oh, no, we could cut them, I mean, if
What
the council
percentage?
came over and said you needed to cut, you know, $200,000 or $300,000 from the budget tomorrow, we'd have to go through and do that, and we have funds where we could do that, and it would, you know, cut some services that we could provide, but certainly we could do that.
But
You know,
percentage wise, if we didn't cut, if you consider X, Y, and Z fixed, what do we have?
well, we don't have it, I mean, we could calculate that, I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I mean, that's kind of a random number, I mean, you know, I mean, that's the will of the council, that's why we do the financial review, that's why, you know, when the finance committee makes recommendations, we'll adjust the budget during the finance committee meetings and things like that, I mean, I'm trying to get to the source of the question, like, if you wanted to just,
No, I'm just asking because I know that once we already negotiate union contracts, once we already negotiate, we have utilities, we have X, Y, and Z. So I know that sometimes we consider those fixed costs.
correct, yeah.
And what I'm asking is that do we really, in this budget, have any discretionary monies that we could
If you're
I think
asking
if you're
if there's,
looking at, I
yeah.
think if you're looking at it, and I think what the vice president is saying, which, you know, what can we choose to, where's the amount of the budget, what's the amount of the budget that we could say, you know what, we'd rather do this with, or we'd rather do that with. And I think when you're thinking discretionary versus non-discretionary, saying discretionary is what we choose to do and non-discretionary is what we have to do. And in a way, you know, probably 90% of the budget we have to do. However, you know, salaries are non-discretion. However, if the council said we need to move $1 million to XYZ, then that discretion, non-discretion money for salaries would, you know, people would have to be let go, or you're losing quality of services. So I guess it gets to the point where you have discretion at the, you know, at the peril of the services that you're providing to the town. So if we chose to say we're going to have, you know, less firefighters, less police officers, less DPW workers, which I'm sure the director would love. I mean, those are things that we've had to do in years past because we just didn't have the money. So it's discretionary in a point. I mean, I guess if there wasn't any discretionary income, you would never have free cash at the end of the year because that money would all be accounted for. So, and you know, so in terms of benefits, we are, but if somebody left as to their own discretion, if an employee left, then we would save the cost of that benefit, and that technically would be discretionary. We have, you know, a small amount of money in a reserve account for the council. That's technically discretionary. If you wanted to, you know, make a motion here tonight, you know, we've talked about over years, people having the opportunity, councilors, to make motions to amend the budget, and we always say you can make a motion to do whatever you'd like, you just have to find a funding source for that, and that's what the discretion lies. That's where you'd like to say, we'd all like to say, okay, here's the $2 million pot of discretionary income that we could put our own not pet projects, but a project, something that we're passionate about, to say, I'd like, you know, to put some money there or some money here. And in some ways, the free cash is somewhat discretionary if we didn't have a financial policy to use that money. But we chose to make it so it's basically 80% non-discretionary, and there is a percentage of that that is discretionary for us to use on certain things. If we chose to do an infrastructure project and did it within the capital budget, we would have to find discretionary fund, non-discretionary funds in that budget to support that. And that's when you talk about if you don't have those funds, that's when you talk about a debt exclusion or whatever it happened to be.
So, bottom line is, can you give him a number?
I can't give you a number. I mean, in the past, councilors have made motions for, money for the schools, money for inspectional services, money for DPW, because we feel the money could be better used. And it's just a question of, you could choose to take it from another line. That's
But not
up to the
if,
council's
not if
purview.
it's required. I mean, to me, not if it's a fixed cost, you can't take it from another line. You
Well-
only can take anything that we have as discretionary to another line. Am I
Yes,
wrong
like
about that?
supplies, and the schools have said in many years, we're getting tight towards the end. The last quarter, we're not buying any supplies. We're not buying any paper or pencils or such like that. And that's small discretionary money that they choose to use for other line items. We put money in snow and ice that by law, we have to put a sum of money there. Now we can underfund that legally because we don't know what that amount is, and then we have to make it up at the end of the year. We put money in for health benefits that we think is pretty much accurate. Could we potentially say, you know what, we think there's $100,000 more in there than we're gonna need, because over the last 3 years, for example, we've been over 200,000 every year. And that's rolling the dice a little bit if you did that, because again, at the end of the year, you have to be whole on it.
There isn't a lot of slush, if you're asking me if there's slush anywhere. I mean, we had department heads ask us for more money.
Sure.
And we
Didn't
couldn't,
have
we didn't have it.
Right.
And so Tony and I went through the budget, and there were a lot of cuts that we had to make. So this is a lean
Yeah,
budget.
that's what I meant, because
Right.
truthfully, when this committee talks about the budget, if indeed most of our budget is fixed, most of the time it's locked in because we've already had a negotiation with sellers. We already know that we have contracts with outside agencies. We already know that. So I'm just asking, how much really are we talking about in terms of our deciding about budget? Because if it's already fixed, Sarah, and we're already lean, we don't really have a lot of work to do here, is my point.
To be honest, I would say no. It's
Thank you.
we're running a very
Thank you.
lean
That's all I'm
level
asking.
service. We didn't cut services. I mean, it's
Mr. President.
Councilor Tassinari.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think in terms of discretionary funding, it's almost all discretionary. And that's why we ask the town manager and his team to organize it appropriately in terms of what we have agreed as a town, the service level that we want to provide. I think that this year, and I mean, I gotta say every year that I've seen the manager's budget, it's been very lean, very poignant, very straight to the point to provide the services that we are accustomed to, and that in, to be totally honest, I think our departments go above and beyond what we fund them in terms of commitment to the town. So discretionary, non-discretionary, we can make a motion to move things around if you see a place that you'd like to fund, but also you'd have to defund something else. I think, thank you again, because there's not a lot to work with. There's not a lot of slush. I don't think there's any slush. There wasn't any slush from what I saw. There's some healthy retained earnings accounts that are good to have. There's one retained earnings account that still needs a little bit of work that we'll have to do some more work on going over the next few years. But I mean, this council is supposed to decide what gets funded and what doesn't get funded based on the manager's recommendation. That's what we're doing here tonight. And I don't have any amendments to make to that budget. So that's all I have to say for this motion. Council President, thank you.
And I think that, getting back to the Vice President's thought there, and it's a good one. And it's, I guess if somebody said put a number on it, I would have to go back and say, okay, in the last 3 years, we've averaged whatever, $1.8 million in free cash. And I say, okay, there's your discretionary money. Now it comes at a price too. And I think it's depending on what you're looking for. Like, I could talk about things right now that I'd like to make amendments to this budget and to try to potentially add. I could talk about, adding an individual inspectional services that maybe goes out and maybe pays for itself in ways that we're looking at
good
problem
idea.
properties and stuff
Think
like
about
that. And then I worry, you worry about expenses, whether they're one-time expenses or reoccurring expenses, because then you have to look for next year's already. Okay.
Exactly.
But if you're looking, potentially we're looking at something that will not only be a betterment to the town, because the town's better, cleaner and such, it also basically pays for itself in terms of making sure that things are being run properly in terms of Airbnbs and such like that. So that's something. You could look at technology, and we've all talked about technology and the need for an increase in that for our budget, in terms of IT and such. We run pretty lean, and that's something that, there were things like, I'm sure it happened to you, that, you go over budgets, and once you've been going over them for a while, you kind of hear the same things coming up over and over year after year, saying, okay, we have to pull the trigger sometime. But when and not just Winthrop, when most cities and towns are pulling the trigger, they're pulling the trigger a little bit for the betterment of the future, but at the expense of something, because the money's good, because there is not like a pot that we can say, okay, we're just going to use a couple $1,000 this year. Like the schools and user fees, I've fought for that for years, thinking that, user fees bring in such a small percentage of the overall cost of athletics. Like, it's got to be a way to try to alleviate that pressure off parents, and that's there is. But so I think that that's what you're talking about, looking to try to get. But I think that the first thing is to get the thought of what you feel. And again, this budget is a process here. We can always make adjustments and ask for transfers throughout the year. But the first thing is to come to a decision on, what do you think the main priority is? Is it an additional person down at DPW? Is it an additional firefighter or police officer? Is it an additional person at ISD to be able to have better control? Is it to create a parks department, which is something that we've talked about, maintain the parks properly, that we're not getting outside contractors, so people just kind of trying to fill in and trying to alleviate some pressure from the DPW. So let's let that be the goal for next year, to create a parks department where we can maintain all our public. I know Council Tassinari has talked about this in the past too, when we tend to build stuff and then there's not that plan for maintenance after, and I think a park department would be fantastic for something like that. So I think that's really heading.
Yeah, I'm heading for that, and then I have just small issues in the budget because I didn't understand them. So I don't know if this is appropriate time.
Yeah, if you have any discussion on anything within that $64 million,
Okay, property insurance. FY 26 was 614, and FY 27 was 411. Tell me about that. So,
Yes. The property insurance, we have had good claims, and because we've had good claims history, we actually get a benefit from our insurance company. And so Maya, as long as the premiums that we pay them, they want to have a small amount over the amount of claims, but our claims have gone down. And then the other thing is, they were insuring us for some other categories that we couldn't get insurance for, and so we had to go outside of Maya to get our insurance. And so now we're hoping to go back into Maya because we've had better claims experience. So they're giving us a lower premium.
so we went out, so we had other insurance last year.
Yeah. Well, not for the whole town, just for a small piece.
Okay,
But-
but that's still a cost, right?
Right.
And now we don't have that.
Now we're gonna put it under the Maya umbrella.
And so it's a lot less.
Right, exactly. And so we thought we were gonna have higher claims last year and higher premiums, and so we increased it, but then they didn't come in as high. So we had some savings last year. So we didn't spend as much as we thought, and then now we're getting lower premiums. So the combination of what we thought were higher increases last year that we didn't use, and the savings this year, we now have lower costs.
Is this all property insurance or what is this?
Yeah,
Right. By the way, just as a point about special ed, I'm now
Yeah. that's not my
But,
bailiwick, yeah.
I understand, but you know that special ed promised when they did 94-142 that they would fund 40%. They're now funding 10 to 15%.
Mhm.
And that's why our situation for special ed is unbelievably difficult.
Mhm.
And so if we're good at it and we have more kids, then we spend 30% of our budget in special ed.
It's a lot, it is, yeah. And I've talked to Lisa about it, and and she's explained to you, I think, when she
I
came.
know.
Yeah. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, we're a little under, but a little under 30%, but it's a substantial amount of money. But that's when you look into, and people have talked about for years, we have CETs in each building, right? So we have 4 schools, the middle, 2 elementary schools, technically the middle school, and then the high school. And we have a CET, which is basically the chair of special ed, so kind of like the principal of special ed in each building. And thought has always been for years, people, and I was one of them, they used to say, well, geez, I think we could do this with just 1 chair. Why do we need 4 chairs for one? However, after experience and understanding what Lisa's, how she thinks and how it's worked out so well, is that when you're able to have chairs in each building, they're able to go to services and maintain having children stay within the district, which is great for the kid because they're more
And cheaper
surrounded
for
by
us.
friends
And a
and
lot
stuff.
less expensive
And
for us.
it's a lot less expensive for the town, so that's where you try to, and that goes all to the unfunded mandates that are required us, right?
Mhm.
And the lack of money that they never really paid us for, or any other city.
Exactly. Transportation. Is there any way we can collaborate with other communities? Transportation?
For the schools? The
Yes.
school transportation?
Yes,
That would be a question for the superintendent.
yes,
Um,
because, I mean, it's significant.
It is. Transportation costs are very expensive.
Yeah.
And they've been going up.
Yeah.
Their increases are very high.
And a lot of there's some of that transportation cost is within the town, and some of it is going outside. There's a homeless population that not necessarily is, without a home, but displaced in such a way, and we're responsible as a town to pick up those children and bring them to us. So transportation costs are huge.
Huge. Tell me more about the rink. 30K in the rink has 30% Parks and Rec. Is that the usual that we usually do that?
Oh, yes, the third,
Yes,
that's subsidized from the, yes.
Yeah,
We've always done that.
We haven't always done that, but we have done that in the past.
Past
several
few years,
Since I've been here, we have, for the last 4 years.
Years and years ago, we used to do $100,000 a year for Parks and Rec for years. And then 2008 came, recession came, town manager at the time said, we can't do this anymore, you have to be self-sufficient. And it went to 0. And, it was a huge effect for the program. And now we've worked our way back up and we've stayed at this amount of 30,000. Now, it's kind of like a misnomer in some respects because there are also there are also charges from the town to the enterprise funds, which are more than that, and indirect costs, right?
Mhm.
So if you have whoever works at Parks and Rec or the rink or any of these enterprise funds, they get a paycheck. That paycheck is drafted in town hall, so we take a percentage of that payroll person's job and we change it and make the expense come from the enterprise fund itself. So the enterprise fund is paying for the services that are rented for whether it's insurance or health benefits or payroll or whatever. that is.
treasurer for taking in
Treasurer for
payments
taking
and,
in payments,
for our accounts payable person paying the bills. So they have to, as an enterprise fund is technically self-sufficient, Sorry, I interrupted, I
No,
apologize.
but I mean, we have, you know, the rink and Parks and Rec, what you're talking about, also trash is a bigger one. You know, trash up till 5 years ago, the town provided 100% money, so it was basically 1.2 million in change. And then the contract went up 50%, 40-something% in 1 year, and it went to 1.8 or 1.9 million, which made us start the enterprise fund and made us have a trash fee. So that 1.2 million is now down, still more than what I would like, but it's 450 odd thousand or $480,000 that is in the operating budget. That's what the town is supplementing. You know, I think, you know, in terms of trash fund, I think we should get to the point where the town is getting a bill every year for their trash and they pay that. The schools are getting a bill for their trash and they pay that. You know, senior centers should get a bill for their trash and they pay that. And then we could go to senior housing and we could talk all about that. You know, people should be paying what they're.
Well, we've now skipped to the solid waste enterprise. But we're paying what, $80,000 more on the enterprise fund. That has to be discussed in this town council. We can't continue this, I don't know what the problem is here. If we're gonna have to pay more, we need to at least discuss it.
The major problem there is if you're looking at tonnage, and I know Steve could talk about this all night, I'm sure, but you're looking at what we're paying for tonnage between mainstream trash and recyclables. It used to be $37 a ton for recyclables and $80-something a ton for mainstream trash. Now it's both over $100 a ton. And that's just uncontrollable, and that changes. It's not like we have a contract for a year. That's month to month to month. So we'll get a bill and say you used X amount of tons. Here's your bill for your solid waste, for your mainstream trash. Here's a bill for your recyclable trash. One of those uncontrollables that you're talking about, and it could change in the blink of an eye the other way. But this past year has been a big trouble in terms of you know, paying for trash.
Yeah,
With
so
the cost of recycling.
I'm just saying, I don't think the town understands what we're facing here. And the cost that we're now, we're either paying and they're charging, or we're charging them. So I don't think that's clear. The Harbor Master Fund I was very excited about the fact that we changed the way in which we did it. And now I see that we have still an increase. We are still paying more for Harbor Master. I thought we were going to be paying less because we were getting more revenue. Am I misunderstanding this comment?
No, we are, they did increase their budget. But the revenue, I think there was some past revenue that hadn't been collected. And so we've collected that and now it's kind of leveled off, as far as the revenue is concerned. We're still getting more. People are dropping their boats in the water now, so our waterway fees were coming in a little bit slow, but they're coming in better now. But the chief is the harbor master, and so he's taken over. And they're also trying to make some improvements down there. So,
But the bottom line is, we're paying $116,000 more.
That's something.
I'm sorry, we're paying,
it was
47,000. We're
47,000.
paying, $47,000 more.
Mhm.
Because we were very excited about the fact that the harbor master was put in a different location, and we thought,
Right.
because we were being more efficient,
Mhm.
that we wouldn't see an increase, and now we're seeing an increase in that. So I'm just saying.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping that the revenue will offset this.
Right.
And one final note, well, we have
Yes.
to know.
Yeah, no.
You're right about renegotiating health. I believe that when we hired the superintendent, she did not take health insurance, and I believe that in her contract there is there's something about her contract. So because she doesn't have health insurance, she gets a different situation. And I don't know if that could be applicable to others, or if you're thinking about a different way to negotiate, and I saw that in the commission report. And I think that's a great idea, because health insurance is tremendously important. And I'm not sure we don't have to renegotiate that in the next contract, because 85% is pretty high.
There's a public employee commission that needs to be put together. It's by state legislature, and it's union employees and a retiree rep. And then they all get together, and then, and it can be worked out. There's different avenues, but I think, as the superintendent mentioned when she was here too, that, you know, it's part of the whole employee package, you know, so that if employees of Winthrop don't earn quite as much money as neighboring towns or other comparables, but we do have a favorable health insurance plan, it's, you know, a nice benefit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we should have negotiated that 2 years ago, and I was on that committee, and we talked about it, and we didn't do it. So that's a really important notion. And finally, I was interested in the recommendations from the commission that says measurement outcomes including time savings, cost reductions, and service improvements. And I just want to see those in writing for every single department in this next budget, because I didn't see it in this budget. And that's not up to you, that's up to every single department, and it's up to the town manager. But KPIs are important to me, and I'm not seeing it. Thank you so much.
Okay, there's a motion, approve the operating budget as presented. It has been seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Council Costigan.
Yes.
Council Castaneri.
Yes.
Council Malad.
Yes.
Council Dimes.
Yes.
Council Romano.
Yes.
Council Reardon.
Yes.
Council Finn.
Yes.
Vice President Swope. Yes. President Lettieri.
Yes. Motion passes. Council Castanari.
Thank you, Council President. Adoption of annual revolving budgets for fiscal year 2027. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 32, and in accordance with the Charter of the Town of Winthrop, I move the Town Council authorize the continuation of all revolving funds in accordance with General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53, E and a half.
Okay, is there a second to the motion for revolt? Second by Councilor Romano. Discussion on the revolving funds. Roll call, please.
Council Costigan.
Yes.
Council Castaneri.
Yes.
Council Malad.
Yes.
Council Dimes.
Yes.
Council Romano.
Yes.
Council Reardon.
Yes.
Council Finn.
Yes.
Vice President Swope.
Yes.
President Lettieri.
Yes. Motion passes. Councilor Castanari.
Thank you, Council President. Adoption of annual capital plan for fiscal year 2027. In accordance with the Charter of the Town of Winthrop, I move that the Town Council vote to adopt the Town Manager's proposed annual capital plan for fiscal year 2027 as set forth in the Town Manager's budget submission, and that to meet said appropriations, the town shall raise and appropriate from other available funds as detailed therein, or take any other action relevant thereto.
Motion for second by Councilor Romano. Discussion on the capital. Vice President Swope.
Thank you. Next, we have the Council Castaneri. Tell me the difference between maintenance and capital.
Anything can be considered capital based on what you're working with, based on what the cost is, and based on if you're extending the life of the asset.
So this is
There's
not
like a
has anything to do
5.3 or
with
5
improvement, right? It has nothing to do with improvement of what we're doing. This has to do with new projects, capital improvement.
No,
No,
It's a mix of both.
it's a mix of everything.
yeah, it's a mix, and so tell me, what's the advantage of not putting the maintenance issues on the regular budget versus a capital plan on capital, you know, like the firehouse as an example would be certainly a capital plan.
I mean, any vehicle purchase is a capital purchase too. The life of the asset is greater than 5 years,
Okay,
that's,
fine.
vehicle maintenance can be considered capital funding, we usually do it out of operating but that will extend the natural life of the fixed asset.
And we have
The
had in
useful
the
life,
past,
sorry.
we've had like fire, police vehicles were in the budget, were in the operating budget that we would buy one vehicle, but the major difference to me between maintenance and the capital asset is something that can be appreciated, and you really can't appreciate, you know what I mean, maintenance plan. Maintenance plan is incredibly important, and we've tried to, I think we've done a good job with the schools that we've built for the last 25 years. They're not capital projects, however, you know, fixing a roof on a new school would be a capital project.
Right.
Maintaining the shrubbery and maintenance of it would not, because you can't really appreciate that asset.
Okay, so if I go through this, there are no maintenance on this. This is only,
There's some maintenance to the capital, you know, the larger buildings, like there is a 10,000 in there for roofing repairs, you know, things like that. I mean, we could certainly roll it in and add, but remember the benefit of what we do here is we take a chunk of free cash, which is savings from the prior year's budget, and we use that. So 500,000, I think this year is what we earmarked out of free cash, which is what was left over from last year's budget, so we use it for this. So you can almost argue that we're using general fund monies on some of the maintenance, and then the other funds come out of the capital stabilization or be for that. So we're technically doing what you're doing, we're just doing it a different way. I mean, we could put it in the budget, but you tend not to want to use free cash to fund your general fund budget. So if we were to do that, we'd be short, and we'd have to probably put some free cash into that, but that's sort of frowned
you tell
upon.
me that there is some financial benefit.
There is, it helps with our bond rating, yeah.
Inflating of what I consider to be maintenance versus capital. I could appreciate that, so I just need to understand it better, because when I look at all of this, I see a lot of maintenance.
Any maintenance to a capital asset is a capital expense.
Is that true?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Is
that's how we
that
look
the
at it.
way in
That's how you
which,
look at it,
is
yeah.
that the way in which everybody operates in
The
the
town I've worked in, it's the same, yeah, it's
It's
a
not
mixture of buying large things, doing, like Jim said, major roofing projects, and then a little bit of maintenance, but again, it's the same, where I've always worked, it's always the same style of funding, and the funding and the bonding agencies, you know, like that, they like to see the free cash being funded to the capital plan, they like to see a healthy amount of capital being done that way, so and it helps our bond rating.
If we can find funding sources that would agree with you, I'm more than happy to understand that. I just didn't understand that when I looked at it, just.
Yeah, so, but it's not just public finance either, that's how they do it in private business too, it's like, if you're doing a maintenance of a manufacturing facility, that's an investment in capital asset, that's a capital expense that gets depreciated over
You're right.
25 to 50 years. It's
So-
not just us, it's not just the town of Winthrop, it's not just municipalities, it's not just the state or the federal government, that's you know, capital versus operating expenditures and investment.
Euro Beach Sand is a capital.
Absolutely.
And that's the one I had, that's why it's highlighted, so
You're right, that's
that
why-
wasn't in the original plan, so
No,
yeah,
I see,
that was a mix up.
that's why I don't, that's why you highlighted it.
Yeah, the Euro Beach sand and the, I'll let Steve talk about the Sagamore.
Trees
Gateway.
could technically be capital, it could be, tree purchases could be considered capital.
Are they?
Well, it's long term, I mean, they're gonna,
Could
if they're planted right in water, they're gonna last, 50 or 100 years.
I'm asking, are they?
Yes, yeah, there's a capital in town.
They were in my capital budget at DCR.
Well, these are all one-time expenses, and we're using free cash, which is one-time funding.
Okay.
So that's why you don't wanna put fixing a roof in an operating budget, cause you're not gonna fix the roof every year. And it's not revenue that you're gonna use that
Right.
comes in every year, it's one-time money that you're
Okay.
using for a one-time expense. Does that help?
I think like,
Sometimes.
if you think about maintenance,
If I look at all this,
if you're thinking
sometimes.
about maintenance and the daily activities that go on to just do small repairs or the janitorial services around, that kind of maintenance, that's operating expenses, because those
Yeah,
are continual,
okay, I will-
continual expenses.
I will take a look at this more carefully and see if I can determine if there are any that I consider, I would question as to whether it be maintenance, but I love the fact that if we have an advantage to put it in capital, I'm all for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Finn.
I just had a question about the Sagamore stairway repair. I live on Sagamore. I've noticed that the pathway's been dug out, but is indeed the stairs gonna get replaced?
Stairs are gonna do that.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because They're
So
long
we
overdue.
we got a grant, a small grant,
Okay,
this year that we used for the flat work between, flat work being the walkway,
yeah,
between Summit and Sagamore. We stopped about 2 feet short of the stairs.
Right.
Cause that stairs we were only got quarter of the walkway done, so we wanted to complete that, and then Tony added this to the,
yeah.
capital plan, that we could put it out to bid and get those stairs done.
Oh, that's great, cause there's
No,
been
please
so
stop it.
many complaints
And
about
there's-
those stairs.
There's a lot more to that path, as you know, it goes all the way down to Hutchinson, so
Yeah,
hopefully we'll stay committed to
yeah,
it.
I'm on the other side of it and people, kids,
They're
elderly,
heavily used, yeah.
and there's been a lot of falls, you've seen them, I mean, they're like funhouse stairs, you know? So I think it's great that it's in here, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Anything else? Roll call for
Capital. Council Costigan,
Yes.
Council Tasneri,
Yes.
Council Milan,
Yes.
Council Dimes.
Yes.
Council Romano.
Yes.
Council Reardon,
Yes.
Council Finn,
Yes.
Vice President Swope,
Yes.
President Lettieri.
Yes. Motion passes. Councilor Castanaro.
Yep. Thank you, Council President. Motion for adoption of Larson Rank Enterprise Fund budget for fiscal year 2027. From the town manager, I move that the town council vote to appropriate the following sums for the operation of the Rank Enterprise Fund budget for fiscal year 2027. Personnel and benefits costs, $204,215.74. Operation and maintenance, $128,778, totaling $332,993.74, with indirect costs of $35,481.45. It is funding, therefore, that the town will vote to raise $368,475.19 as follows: through user fees, $338,475.19, from the subsidy from the general fund, $30,000.
Second for the motion.
Second.
Second by Councilor Romano, discussion.
Can you talk, okay, you're really knowledgeable about this, Jim, could you just go over everything?
Yeah, the rink, the rink is subsidized by its users, right? And they have three major users. The users are the public schools, they call it the quote unquote beer league guys, people that rent ice on a nightly basis over the past 40 plus years. And then Winthrop Youth Hockey, so that accounts for about 80% of their revenue. Now we charge, and I believe the rink is going up in their ice charge, right? You rent ice by the hour, and hockey is kind of weird, it's a 50-minute hour, or you can get a 60-minute hour. So our rates will be going up to $270 an hour. So that's for a 60-minute hour. Now, the difference with our rink is other rinks, the next cheapest rink that you'll find is $340 to $350 an hour, and other rinks go up $400 an hour. The reason why we are below that is two reasons, really. I mean, one of our major, we're all being served by Winthrop community, basically, right? So we're trying to keep the costs as low as possible because it's the children of the town and the citizens of the town. But the other reason is the amenities. We don't have showers. We don't have, we're hopefully going to be bringing something before the council in the near future for new locker rooms, which will have handicap accessible bathrooms for the patrons, for the public, which we are not at that level right now. That rink was built in 1973, and I'm not saying the fixtures are the same since 1973, but the setup is pretty close. So we are trying to, in not having the amenities that other leagues don't want to necessarily come into Winthrop, not because of the rink itself. We have some of the best ice in the state, but it's the amenities. So, you can't have a game and then take a shower after the game, which is what most high schools want to do. We're fortunate enough to be connected to the gymnasium from the middle school, so the high school is able to use those showers, which are integrated themselves from the 60s. So, we're only able to get a certain rate for our ice. I think the management down there does an incredible job. We are pretty much 80% booked between November and March, once the high school season starts. Winthrop Public Schools pay the same price as a regular renter on a Thursday night or a Winthrop Youth Hockey renter. So Winthrop Public Schools pay approximately high 40s to around $50,000 a year in fees. Winthrop Youth Hockey pays about $102,000 to $103,000 a year, and the guys that rent on a regular basis, guys and girls that rent on a regular basis, those quote unquote real need people, they pay roughly $60,000 a year. So that's where the vast bulk of your revenues are coming. My thought is once you have amenities and can offer amenities, you can offer programs to a lot of Massport used to have leagues and all these other businesses. The IRS used to have a league and come, but they need to have showers available so they could go and skate for a couple hours before work and then they go to work. So once we have these amenities, we'll be able to book that other 20% of the hours that we really don't have anybody to use between 7 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon when the kids get out of school. Anything else on the
Just one quick thing.
Yes.
I know I brought it up in the past about the water bill for the rink. Years of never paying the water bill. Has this been fully put into the budget now that the cost of the rink and the water is fully in the budget now?
I know the water is, especially now with the auditorium coming down, the gymnasium still there. I know there's I'm 99% sure that everything is metered.
Everything is metered. They do get bills, but those bills are still abated.
But everything is accounted for. Everything is accounted for in the rink.
All water is accounted for.
Gymnasium. Roll call on the rink, please.
Counselor Costigan?
Yes.
Counselor Tassinari?
Yes.
Counselor Milan?
Yes.
Counselor Dimes?
Yes.
Counselor Romano?
Yes.
Counselor Reardon?
Yes.
Counselor Finn?
Yes.
Vice President Swope? President Lettieri?
Yes. Motion passes. Councilor Tassinari.
Thank you, Council President. Motion from the town manager for the adoption of Recreation Enterprise Fund budget for fiscal year 2027. Motion reads, I move that the town council vote to appropriate the following sums for the operation of the Recreation Enterprise Fund budget for fiscal year 2027. Personnel and benefits, $258,105.08. Operation maintenance, $115,404.45. Totaling $373,509.53. With an indirect cost of $36,490.47. And as funding, therefore, that the town vote to raise the $410,000 as follows. User fees, $380,000, and subsidy from general fund, $30,000.
Second by Councilor Romano. Discussion on the Parks and Rec. Vice President Schwartz.
If the user fees don't match of $380,000, Councilor Tassinari, what?
That's a good question for the town manager.
Ultimately, the town is responsible
Yeah,
for
we
any
end up
enterprise fund we have, whether it be the rink, Parks and Rec, trash, water and so on.
So in the last 3 or 4 years, have they met those fees?
For the most part for the services, but sometimes with the maintenance on the buildings, we've had to supplement, like this year with the gym and a few other times we have to supplement some of the expenses that go along with it. But I have to pull those numbers, but yeah, we've had to in the past.
Sometimes some of the issues with Parks and Rec in relation to other enterprise funds is the majority of their business comes in July. So they're collecting revenues in the following fiscal year for bills that were done in the prior fiscal year. So it's a little tricky, but they have gotten much better with
Yeah.
that.
Robbie's pretty good at separating that out and making sure we match it up.
But we have had. Yes.
In terms
Question
of,
for you. Okay.
Vice President Schwartz.
User fees? Yes. 380, what do you think?
Our user fees
Do
for
you
the
think that's-
recreation?
do you think that's realistic that we can collect that?
We discussed it I mean, we're hoping to. I mean, it was difficult this year because they moved.
They lost some membership because of where they were and the Point Shirley building and things like that, yeah.
Yeah.
But now that we're getting back in the gymnasium and the summer program has, you know, been, and there's also other competition, right? There's other groups out there that are offering services, the schools offer after school, you know, summertime services, so, but Sean's done a really good job with it, so we think we'll hit those numbers. And part of what we did there too is, remember, we took half of Sean's salary out of, paid for another general fund and took it out of there, because Sean does a lot of stuff that's not involved with the Park and Rec program for the town, like the maintenance of the fields and all the other ancillary stuff that he does. That's not really tied to Park and Rec, and he does a lot of project work and things like that, so we took, in fact, this is the only town I've seen where it was fully funded. Usually the director is paid for out of general fund, and then the program itself runs with the summertime people that they have to hire and things like that. He manages the Massport program with all the employees that come over there. We hire all the summertime help, you know, that gets farmed out to a lot of different departments and a lot on his stuff. So I mean, you know, that's the logic behind, you know, taking his salary and cutting it in half in front of the general fund. So that will help a lot. That helps with the expenses and help to do what you're saying, so we don't have to subsidize it and have the general, you know, make sure the fees cover it.
And if we don't make the 380, then we subsidize it.
Well, they have retained earnings, but it's been slowly kind of whittled down every year. So our first take is to go to the retained earnings if we need to, you know, if there is a shortage. I mean, it's been tight every year, but we've been reaching it. So they've been, you know, making it. The other thing that they can do too in an enterprise fund is they slow down their spending. So they try not to spend as much, because basically the revenue has to equal the expenses. So if they don't hit the target and they're a little under, if they're under on their expenses, it's still okay.
Alright, so they have met this target that you proposed.
Well, they previously, yeah, but it's, if they don't meet it exactly, if their expenses are less, it's still okay.
Alright, so. Yes, yeah.
Councilor Testa.
In terms of the gym though, right, that's a town asset. It doesn't belong to Parks and Rec.
Correct.
It's our asset which we need to maintain.
Yeah.
For the town anyway, so if any contribution from the enterprise fund is a plus, I guess, for the general fund.
It is, but it's also, you know, a lot of those
Where they
expenses come from
figure
the usage from the Park and Rec program in there, so some of those are directly tied to that, so. You know, whether it's, you know, they're in there using the, you know, additional heating and the lights and the water usage and that kind of stuff, that all gets tied there, so.
It's all on that operation and maintenance line.
Correct, yeah.
Thank you, Council President. Parks and Recreation, I mean, that was one of my first jobs as a councilor for Sean Driscoll hired me, so I just think it's very important to get this money and really trust Sean. And you know, my son does it, all his friends. There's a large amount of our community that that benefits from, so just wanted to state that.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, roll call please.
Council Costigan,
Yes.
Council Tassaneri.
Yes.
Council Milan,
Yes.
Council Dimes.
Yes.
Council Romano,
Yes.
Council Reardon,
Yes.
Council Finn,
Yes.
Vice President Swope,
Yes.
President Terry.
Yes. Motion passes. Councilor Tassaneri, you have it.
Thank you, Council President. This is for the adoption of the Harbor Masters Enterprise Fund budget for fiscal year 2027, submitted by Town Manager Marino. I move that the Town Council vote to appropriate the following sum for the operation of the Harbor Master Enterprise Fund budget fiscal year 2027. Personnel and benefits, $187,850. Operation and maintenance, $80,600. Totaling $268,450, with an indirect cost of $75,210.92. And as funding, therefore, that the town vote to raise the $343,660.92 as follows through solely through user fees.
Alright, second by Councilor Romano, discussion. And I would just, before I go to Vice President, I just have a question for Sarah on the indirect cost here. We look at the other funds and the two that we did previously, it's roughly around 10%. This one's roughly 25 plus so percent. Why so much?
Good question. Hold that up. be health insurance, I don't know, wait a minute, hold on, let me see. I think there's a lot in the treasurer's costs. It's coming up, I have a little blue circle going here.
They don't have a huge number of employees. Check that. Huge.
Right, they do get, they're charged a little higher percentage than the other. I think it's because of all of, like the treasurer, he has 4% of his time, and it's only 2.5% for like rink and parks and rec. Because, you know, they've got boat excise coming in, they got the waterway fees, there's a lot of revenue sources, so the treasurer is a higher percentage. And they have a higher percentage on the senior accountant, on the AP clerk as well as assistant treasurer, and a lot of the treasury, they're like 5%. And the other ones are 2%. So I
Just
think it's the
seems-
type
The
of revenue.
assessor's office, there's a lot the assessor's office does with that, with the
Yeah.
boat excise,
That's
the
true,
Coast Guard list, so they
The assessor's office.
assessors don't get rink or park and rec at all, you
right,
know, so they end up paying, you know, the 5% as allotment for the assessor, assistant assessor, and assessing clerk. That all gets in there, which is not.
10% for them, yeah.
So how many,
Vice President.
how many people are hired here?
Well, they're paying a portion of the general fund people, so a piece of Tony's salary, a piece of my salary, a piece of, because when we do work for them or with them, so when I help with the budget, some of my time gets charged to them.
Sure.
So the treasurer is collecting their revenue and balancing receivable reports and balancing the cash with them,
Right.
that gets charged back to them.
So how much does the harbor master make?
As far as, the salary is the chief. But we don't charge, I think the chief's salary isn't in there.
So there's not a percentage of that salary in that?
Not on the indirects are the.
No, on the labor check.
No, we have, Daniel Stone, the detective, is gonna be assigned down there, so that we have his salary in the 65,000, and then Kevin Janellis is in there as well. As everyone knows, Dennis McCarney is paid for by the, you know,
Right.
Suffolk County Sheriff's Office, so that's the other staff member. Then we have some, those part-time employees that we bring on board as well.
But the actual harbor master,
Is the chief.
none of that.
We didn't put anything in this year, I mean, if the council wants, we can add some next year, but we didn't put anything in there. Cause the chief tends to, a lot of the stuff is what Detective Stone's doing down there and managing the day-to-day, and the deputy harbor master takes care of a lot of it for him as well.
So we don't, there is no salary for a harbor master because it's the chief.
Correct, as far as, he's got the title.
chief's salary is
Roughly
175.
I'm,
The chief salary?
yes.
190, yeah, he's at 190,
190.
for the chief, yes. That's in the staffing sheet.
Just, so there's no, there's no percentage of his salary in this,
Currently, no.
but the rest of the harbor master is 187,850.
But that's seasonal employees too. So we have to have, there's seasonal employees that are helping out, because they need staff, not just 2 people.
Right.
You know,
So
so,
we have a lot of college kids we bring in to run the pump out boat, you know, we've got other
So
part-timers
what
that we bring in.
percentage of the salary is that?
So there's roughly, I think, 2 main salaries, which is about 125,000, and the other 55 or 60,000 is for part-time.
Part-timers and
And some
summer.
portion of salaries.
So let me ask the overall question. I know that the assistant town manager talked a lot about putting the harbor master in under this, police. And so the question I have is, did we save money?
what do you mean we save money? As far as our
We
budget
didn't do it
has,
to say, it wasn't, the goal of that wasn't to save money, the goal of it was to make sure we weren't collecting a lot of the waterways fees, because we didn't have a good system in place, so now we're collecting the waterway fees, and we're doing more in the way of enforcement, which we weren't doing before. So that was a benefit of having the police officer down there, having police presence out on the boats, protecting our harbors. We weren't doing, a lot of that stuff wasn't, getting done, at least to my satisfaction, so that was the benefit. So it wasn't about cost savings, it was about providing a better service
So-
down there.
So given that we're in a budget, so
Yep.
given what we did, and we have better service, did we save any money or are we spending more money?
We're matched up the revenues with the expenses, so we're providing the services that we're charged for. If we would have to make a decision, we'd probably have one time with the chief down there, we'd have to allot it, like if the, Suffolk County Sheriff decided to pull Dennis County out of there, then we'd have to make a decision, and decide how to reallocate those funds, but I would say we're actually collecting the harbor waterways fees the way we're supposed to now, and we're providing the services to
So if you
a better
took
level.
the number of fees that we're getting,
Mhm.
that we didn't get before.
Correct.
And the salaries that we have applied to the position of harbor
Mhm.
master or whatever, where are we in the balance of that?
Was it balanced? We're not allowed to charge for services that we can't make a profit down there, so the revenues have to match the expenses. We can't show a profit. If we have a little bit of budget turnbacks, that'll fall through the retained earnings, but we can't budget a surplus, like we have to budget for the expenses to match their revenues as they come in.
Roll call please for that.
Council Costigan,
Yes.
Council Castanary,
Yes.
Council Milan,
Yes.
Council Dimes,
Yes.
Council Romano,
Yes.
Council Reardon,
Yes.
Council Finn,
Yes.
Vice President Swope,
Yes.
President Lettieri.
Motion passes. Councilor Tassinari, water and sewer.
Thank you, Council President. Adoption of Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund budget for fiscal year 2027 submitted by Town Manager Marino. Move that the Town Council vote to appropriate the following sums for the operation of the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund budget for fiscal year 2027. Personnel and benefits costs, $1,823,862.15. Operation and maintenance, $9,618,844.58. Total cost, $11,442,706.73. Indirect costs of $402,807.77. And as funding therefore, that the town vote to raise the $11,845,514.50 as follows, and that is through user fees entirely.
All right, second by Councilor Romano. Motion is on the table. Discussion on water and sewer.
Please you all. Okay, water and sewer. If Steve could actually improve the work that he's doing by 200%, instead of doing 100, whatever he does for every year, if he did 200, can we reduce any fees here, or is it because are we losing water, are we, what's
I'll
going on
defer
here?
to Steve on that one.
Well, I will say our lost water is
We've
down.
actually knocked down
I know
unaccounted
it's down.
25% down to almost 12.5%.
Okay,
So we've done an incredible job reducing unaccountable water. And that's a result of several things. It's a result of council and the town manager recommending to the council to remain committed to infrastructure improvement. We gotta do these projects.
Absolutely.
It costs us more money not to do
absolutely,
infrastructure upgrades than
no question.
building them. We've reduced our unexpected water main breaks exponentially. I know this year we had an issue during that blizzard where we got 6 of them in a day, but we used to get 20 to 25 water main breaks a year. We're down to, well below, 10 a year. So, and that's a direct result of fixing replacing the aged mains. We've been committed, you've been committed to keeping the lead line replacement, going. Now, of course, that's a DEP mandate, but getting lead out of the system is not only benefiting, the health and safety of the users of the water, Mr. Lead, that results in service leaks primarily. If the service leak, is on private property, or whether it's on public property, that's unaccounted for water, right? It's unmetered, unaccounted for water. So, I would love to see, more money, we have a lot of projects going on, but yeah, I would never say no to additional funding. I mean, there's so much work still to be done.
I guess what I'm asking, if we changed money around and gave you money to double your work on water and sewer, would we reduce the costs significantly, or does it matter?
But again, we're not given any money from the operating budget, right? So this is, we look at Steve and we just think DPW, right? This is Steve's running another business, basically, right?
Yeah.
So this is not affecting, none of this 11 million is affecting your operating budget. This is coming from people paying their water
Water and
bills.
sewer bills.
And it's coming from the assessment from MWRA. So, we're not giving Steve, we're not giving water and sewer any money, technically, from the taxpayers. We're giving, unfortunately, the taxpayers are paying the 11 million in user fees.
What we do, is come to council to ask for, appropriations, right? To move money from our capital stabilization, or to allow us to utilize zero interest loans from the MWRA. And that's how, we've primarily been doing our infrastructure improvements, taking zero interest loans over 10 years. Pretty soon, we had utilized, when we did the Center Business District infrastructure project, we actually took an advance on our water main replacement money to do that project, up until 2028. So we're coming up to a point where we'll start being able to utilize that water main money again. What we've been typically using each year, what we've been, not typically, but regularly using is the lead line replacement money that they offer, which is again, is a 10-year zero interest loan. That's how we've been doing our lead line replacements. And it's a great program because it doesn't, it doesn't cost the resident anything, it's except the loan amount, so a lot of communities will just replace up to the property line, and then, the homeowner gets charged for the private side. We haven't been doing that, we've been doing the entire service.
Actually, I think a lot of, I think that's not necessarily the case in some instances. I think private citizen has been paying to the road.
Sorry?
The private citizen has been paying the pipelines to the road.
That's incorrect. The project, every private citizen is paying the water rate, but
If the pipe breaks in their house that goes to the road, they're paying that cost to make that work. Is that not right?
it's right if they're not on the roster yet. So right now, we're doing all tier 1 services, right, which is a tier 1 service is a full lead line replacement from main to meter. That's what we've been utilizing this program for. If the town has already, in 1972 has done copper from the main to the property line, and the homeowner gets a a service leak, and they're not a full line service, and they're not on this year's roster, they can wait for us to make the repair, but there's no guarantee.
So is there any way that we could do this or not?
I don't believe so, no, because enterprise funds are self-sustaining. So whatever he spends, he has to raise in revenue. It has to be balanced. So when you say double the work and save money, no, double the work and double his expense budget, we have to double the revenue budget. sorry.
Councilor,
Speak.
Councilor Moore.
Maybe I'm hearing you maybe a little different, is if we put more money in to fix things faster, will the rates go down? Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah.
Okay, and generally because we have so much to fix, it wouldn't be for years to come. The more I've looked into this, it's, I mean, all the taxpayers would love to see their water bills go down, we just keep seeing it go up.
And unfortunately, we have to borrow money for a lot of those capital projects, and so if we have to borrow millions of dollars to be able to increase this work, to fix the pipes, to make it better, now we have to pay the debt payments on the money that we borrow. So,
But I assure you, those loan payments are much less than the lack of maintenance and the unexpected breaks.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I was trying to.
so there is some savings there, you know, so.
We have roughly, if you correct me, 45 to 47 miles of infrastructure underneath, and over the past, I don't know, 15, 16 years, we've probably done about 11 or 12 miles.
That's right, so yeah, about 46 miles of water main, you got about 35 miles of sewer main, and you need drainage infrastructure, so there's, you know, we're just talking about water right now. You know, there's also sewer infrastructure, it has to get fixed under the, you know, sewer enterprise. We don't have a stormwater enterprise fund yet. I strongly urge that come about, cause that would help these drainage projects, you know? But again, it's another fee, and no one wants to talk fees, but it's reality, you know, these things don't fix themselves, and most municipalities do have a stormwater enterprise fund. You know, again, there's a lot of unfunded mandates from EPA for stormwater management, and those continue to go up, so.
We're not finished about this discussion, later.
Any other, council testimony?
Thank you, Council President. Just a question for the manager, maybe Director Cala, who wants to jump in. The line here for operation and maintenance, that includes the cost of, basically cost of the water to the town, cost of goods sold. That includes the debt service payments on the zero interest loans that we've already taken out. And then it also includes like all those other maintenance costs that we have to fix. Like anytime we call out a contractor to help us fix any water line breaks or to use contractors to do installations. Like that's all inside that operation and maintenance budget. And that's how basically we can borrow from this fund to do that work without having to use general fund money to cover that debt service.
Is that right? Okay, good.
Any other? Roll call, please.
Council Costigan,
Yes.
Council Castanary,
Yes.
Council Malab,
Yes.
Council Dimes,
Yes.
Council Romano,
Yes.
Council Reardon,
Yes.
Council Fink,
Yes.
Vice President Swope, President Lettieri.
Yes. Motion passes. Councilor Tessenari.
Thank you, Council President. Adoption of the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund budget for fiscal 2027 submitted by Town Manager Marino. I move the Town Council vote to appropriate the following sums for the operation of the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund budget for fiscal year 2027. Personnel and benefits $96,973. Operation and maintenance $1,807,324. Total of $1,904,297. Indirect cost of $58,592.99. And as funding, therefore, that the town vote to raise the $1,962,889.99 as follows. Through user fees of $1,442,889.99. Subsidy from the general fund for $480,000 and the retained earnings of the enterprise fund for $40,000.
Okay, motion made, seconded by Councilor Romano. Discussion. Councilor Tessenari.
Thanks, Council President. This was I just touched on this when I thanked everybody. This is the one where we're drawing down from the retained earnings continually. This is the fourth year in a row.
I think so, yeah.
So that's something that we have to start working towards moving off of drawing down those retained earnings just because of the way that Department of Local Services is gonna treat enterprise funds. But it's an issue that the town manager knows, Johnson knows. We should all be aware of it as council members.
A question before, go to Vice President. But on the barrels themselves, we paid off the barrels.
Yeah.
Paid off. And that's a savings of how much?
That was last year.
75.
Yeah,
72.
70.
Yeah.
So what's the replacement? How many are we replacing on a weekly basis? Yeah. Steve, how many are we replacing on a monthly, weekly basis? Trash.
Barrels right now, we're probably repairing or replacing about 15 barrels a week, bins a week.
And
We're
barrels
trying
that-
to repair, we have, replacement is the last resort.
Barrels that we have out, about.
How many barrels do we have out?
Yeah.
4,800 or so, 4,900. I have to check that number.
And again, just to make sure everybody understands that the policy is these are for one.
That's just what we're billing, so, those are trash barrels, we have recycled barrels out as well.
Right.
We don't bill recycle.
And again, just for everybody's knowledge, this is for town pickup, trash pickup, recycle pickup for 1 family, 2 family, and 3 family only. Anything over 3 family is required to have a separate private contractor. Other discussion, Vice President Swope?
Sorry. At Highland Avenue, they just announced that there were going to be a 4-family unit there. So I take it you're not picking up at 148 Highland Avenue.
Check the roster, I don't know.
Please check the roster
That's
about every unit that has more than 3, so that we are not picking up there.
There are some 4 families that are grandfathered in.
Grandfather is.
About
How
9
many?
of them, 8 or 7, 8 or 9.
It
I'm
was
not sure.
a small amount, yeah.
Yeah.
But there are
Is
some.
it no more?
No, there hasn't been.
So now that we just put another 4-family in there on Highland Avenue, make sure you don't pick up the trash there. Thank you. And then the other thing is.
I don't pick up the trash. But I'll pass it on to the contractor.
And why not? And so, this is an enterprise fund, I take it, and we have to end up finding ways to make sure that we pay for that. I mean, we shouldn't be paying for that as a town. We're gonna have to assess that fee, and I know it's unpopular, but sorry. I don't think it's right that we are paying for this. So I'd like some material to actually at least cost this out and see what it would mean. Thank you.
Other discussion? Roll call, please.
Council Costigan,
Yes.
Council Castaneri,
Yes.
Council Malott,
Yes.
Council Dimes.
Yes.
Council Romano,
Yes.
Council Reardon,
Yes.
Council Finn,
Yes.
Vice President Swope, President Lettieri.
Yes.
Motion passed. Councilor Tassinari, one more time.
Thank you, Council President. Appropriate funds to the Education Stabilization Fund submitted by Manager Marino. I move the town council vote to raise and appropriate $1,450,000 to the Education Stabilization Fund for the fiscal year 2027.
All right, motion's been made, seconded by Councilor Romano. Discussion on the education stabilization. Okay, and this is a fund that was created a couple of years ago. This was part of the override. There's 1.4 million that went into it last year, 1.450 this year. That money has not been touched. Again, the reason for that money was to prolong as long as possibly can for going out with an override. And we thank the citizens for doing that. And that money, if it ever is taken out, from a request from the school department, it needs the approval of the town council, to be taken out. So, discretion is incredibly important. It's a town, we want it to be maintained as long as possible. Councilor Tassinari.
Thank you, Council President. Just one quick question for the town manager. The balance of the fund after this appropriation is gonna be,
We've got some interest on it, so it's higher than the two numbers combined.
Here, there it is.
It's about two, it will be 2.870.
1.5 and change.
Yeah, education stabilization is now $1,582,917 as of
thank you.
Okay. The discussion roll call on education.
Counselor Costigan,
Yes.
Counselor Tassinari,
Yes.
Counselor Malat,
Yes.
Counselor Guines, Counselor Romano,
Yes.
Counselor Reardon,
Yes.
Counselor Finn,
Yes.
Vice President Swope,
Yes.
President Lettieri.
Motion is passed. Again, I wanna thank Sarah, you obviously, Johnson and Tony for taking the time with this budget and I know, no real amendments came from that, which is a good thing. It means that everybody looking at this thought you guys did a really good job and Finance Commission did a fantastic job. And as was said, I think earlier in public comment, it was incredibly important and so much knowledge is gained by going to these meetings. Take a look and really understand, and I think Vice President Swope mentioned before about what these departments do on a day in and day out operation, and it's, we're pretty much bare bones in a lot of ways, but we do a lot with what we have. We don't have the assistant department heads and the assistants of the assistant department heads and the junior executives and the this and the that. I mean, we run it lean, but we run it well. So I just want to thank everybody involved, all the departments, and let's do even better fiscal 28. Thank you for that. New business, town council review and vote on Massport pilot agreement. Town manager.
Sure, I've got a quick PowerPoint just to give an update. Certainly answer any questions. These have it.
I know, now everyone wants to do it.
Slideshow.
As we're getting this up, Denise, as we're getting this up, there's a couple of other things on the packet on.
They needed a public hearing notice that had to be advertised in the paper because we only had a week, we couldn't do it, so they'll be on.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Alright, is that
Yeah.
fine? Isn't there a title?
That's the one on the bottom.
There you go. Alright, so I just wanted to kind of give a brief overview. We've got obviously had a pilot agreement for a long time with Massport. Current one that just wrapped up, started in 2005, went to 2025. We're currently on a 1-year extension with them. But I want to say, what is the pilot agreement? Pilot, for those who don't know, means payment in lieu of taxes. These agreements are a way for municipalities to collect funds from nonprofit groups and other state agencies They're utilizing our land in town, but are not subject to traditional real estate taxes due to their nonprofit status. One of the things with a pilot agreement, mitigation funds, so any impacts from the airport and whatnot can't be negotiated in the pilot agreement. Mitigation funds need to be tied to a project. Similar to how we receive funds for the Winthrop Foundation monies for that new parking garage project and the new parking lots. When they did those projects, they gave us large sums of money that went into the Winthrop Foundation. That's where the mitigation gets funded for. Massport is subject to the restrictions of revenue diversion, which is mandated by the FFA, meaning that the airport's revenue must be used for capital and operating costs, not for mitigation measures. Revenue from the parking lots, I'll point out, and garages is excluded from this restriction. Those funds can be used for mitigation projects and to fund pilot agreements, which I know Massport does. And then Massport's charter dictates that they are required to have a pilot agreement with Winthrop, but it doesn't mandate an amount. It just says that they have to have a pilot agreement. It does not list to mandate any amount. Next slide, please. The timeline, like I said, the current contract ran from July 1, 2005 to June 30th, 2025. Payments during that time frame, when it first started, were $900,000 flat with no increase. This agreement was amended in 2018 to increase to payments of $1.2 million in fiscal year 2019 or FY19, and then finally in $2 million payment was paid in FY25 when they wrapped up. We signed a 1-year extension with them last year as we were continuing negotiations, and then we increased that payment by $100,000, so we did a payment last year for $2.1 million, which is our starting point for this year. What we currently, with the council's guidance, currently offer negotiated with Massport. If this is approved, this will be a 15-year deal starting on July 1, 2026 through June 30th, 2041. The FY27 payment will increase from $2.1 million to $3 million, which is a 42% increase over FY26. Payments will increase by 1% for the first 10 years, and then 1.5% for the remaining 5 years, culminating with a payment of $3,517,217,217 in FY41. One trigger in that, given the length of the contract, one of the things that council pushed for and we got them to agree to is in the last 5 years of the contract, and the final 5 years of the agreement, if inflation goes above 5%, then the payment will increase the inflation rate, with the inflation payment, or the amount that your payment goes up every time will increase by 2.5% instead of the agreed upon 1.5%. So that will increase if inflation does increase over 5% during the last 5 years. Next slide. And then this is the proposed payment plan. FY27 obviously is $3 million. It goes up 1% per year up through FY36. In FY36, the total amount will be $3.281,056. And then it goes up 1.5% for the last 5 years, and then again we end at the $3,517,217. Now keep in mind, one of the things that we pushed for, we tried to get the more money up front. The initial offering from Massport was $2.5 million in the front with a slightly higher inflation rate, but when we did the math on this, getting additional money up front ended up being beneficial. Time value of money, right? That $3 million is worth more today than it would be in 5 years, and we ended up getting. By doing it this way, we ended up getting about $2 million more on the long haul over the 15 years if we had gone with the original Massport term. So, the council, when we met on this, pushed for, they wanted to talk about mitigation. So obviously I think that I sent out the emails this afternoon. I don't know if everybody got them or not, but we did get on the particulate collectors. We do have one in place. We thought we had two. The second one is coming, and they promised it by the end of the calendar year, but it's not in yet. The cost of each one of those is about $15,000, but we have one at Point Shirley, and I sent you an active link, and we'll put that active link up on the website. People can monitor that and see what it's collected. And then what I also sent out to the council is there's a summary by their consultants on that in that email, that talks about when those particular numbers rise. It has a lot to do with when the winds are coming from Logan Airport and when they're not, and things like that. But one of the things the council pushed for is we want to talk about mitigation, but again, we have to tie it to projects, and we're going to stay on Massport and keep monitoring those numbers. Excuse me. And then the other issue is parking. I sent out the the parking numbers that we got. Parking has little spikes here and there, but actually this year is trending Slightly lower, and last year was down a little bit for the parking numbers. And then the flights obviously continue to go up, but those are all things, again, mitigation numbers. But the council has tasked me to make sure on an annual basis that we come in and we give an update to the council and public on exactly what's going on with flights, exactly what's going on with parking out at Massport. And again, some of the things Massport has done, which we talked about, is they've got those remote terminals now. 2 of them are coming online. One in Framingham's already up and running on a limited basis, and then the one in Braintree will be opening up soon too. And those are basically, you can go to the airport, go through TSA, check your bags, get your boarding passes. You get on a bus when you leave there, and then they take you to the airport. So and then they have a special spot where they drop you off, and you just go right to your gate. So the thought process in there is you don't have to, it's a remote site. All the baggage stuff and the checking in is done at the remote site, and then you get there. It just streamlines the services at the airport. That's one of the things Massport's doing to try to minimize the traffic flow down there. Compared to what Boston does, Boston's got an agreement. I mean, if you we were talking, the council president mentioned, if you look at the acreages, just on the airport alone, keep in mind Massport has other properties in Charlestown that they operate in Boston and down by the port area. But if you just did the acreage at the airport, if this deal were to go into place, Winthrop has 192 acres out there. So based on the $3 million payment, that would be roughly $15,625 per acre, versus the payment that Boston gets now for their 2,192 acres at just the airport. And again, their pilot payment that they get includes much more acreage than that. But just that acreage alone, Boston got last year $23,975,000, but that equals the 10,937. So we're getting substantially more per acre on this deal than even Boston's getting compared to what they use for land over there. So that was one of the things we talked about. Certainly open to questions. I mean, this was a couple of years, a long haul. We were certainly happy with the agreement. The 42% increase is, most that it's ever gone up. Getting that money now will help, as we just discussed the budget. I mean, certainly, shortages in the departments, and then obviously what the council's talked about is not using all of these funds just to roll into the general fund, but possibly to set up that stormwater fund and maybe put some money in there so we can use these funds to maybe pay for some of the debt on the projects that work that we have to come up. And I'll certainly kick that over to the council president to talk about that. That was one of the things when it is an issue. So
yeah, thank you for the presentation. 42% increase is good. 15 years is a long time, but I look at it as a 25% reduction in what the last agreement was, a 20-year agreement. To me, the most important thing about this is the present value of money, the common value of money, and how you use that money. My thought would not be to hurry and use this in an operating budget. My thought would be to leverage this as best we can, or the vast majority of this, to enable us to do a significant amount of infrastructure projects that would eliminate the need of having to go out for a debt exclusion for some of these projects. And that, I think, is incredibly important for the taxpayers in Winthrop. And I think if we leverage this money properly, it could help us in so many ways, especially this first fiscal year. So it would not be, I would look at it and I love the 42% increase, but I don't think that that's something that we're going to say, okay, now we have another $900,000 to throw into the budget. I think, we run a pretty lean ship, and I think we do things financially conservatively, and I think that's important, and it's shown good progress for the town. But by leveraging this money properly, it will be a benefit to taxpayers for not having to, be forced, not forced, but having to look at the possibility of debt exclusions to pay for infrastructure projects. So, but anyway, I will open this up. Councilor Costigan will step in.
Thank you, Mr. Town, Council President. And just looking at all of this and having the brief discussions we've had, I mean, 2 30-minute sessions, basically. What's presented to the council tonight was negotiated, I believe, exclusively by the town manager, no offense. But I don't believe it involved a consultant, if I'm correct, or if it did, it was very, very limited. And again, I maybe stand corrected in the talks. But we're here, town council, just this past month itself, for 2 30-minute sessions with various numbers and years of the contract as well, to look at briefly, very briefly, amongst the discussions. In the time the council has had to discuss this was very, very limited. So I feel, at least tonight, the council can't really make an educated decision based upon the limited information and time provided to review this overall proposal. We talked about 5, 10, 15. I mean, tonight's the first time I've actually heard it was proposed to be a 15. So I might be standing to be corrected there as well. Now here we are in the 11th hour. We've had an extension for over a year. And, if not passed relatively before the end of this month, by the 30th, I believe, we stand to lose anywhere from $500,000 to $900,000. So, again, the pressure is on the council here to not object to this proposal. At least that's my feeling. Looking at the numbers briefly presented to the council, I believe we should have negotiated for more. At least 500,000 in the 10-year if we're gonna take that, and at least an additional $1 million to this proposal tonight for the 15. And I'll get into the gist of why that is and my beliefs are. I believe we should have negotiated that, at least in the first year of all of these proposals, 10, 15. That should be the starting point. Increase those numbers by 500,000 for the 10, $1 million for the 15. Let's remember, this contract is exclusively for the 3 square miles, or I should say 3.3 square miles and 190 some odd acres of Winthrop property used by Massport, again, under the pilot. This doesn't address any compensation for the health-related issues here in town, as I mentioned during some of these 2 brief meetings. Increased cancer, asthma, noise pollution, so forth, so on. And looking at some of the numbers that are going to be presented to us in the future here, just in the next 7 years. I mean, we're looking at an increase of Massport by at least 30%. I mean, they already funnel in 40+ million people per year. Increase all of this by 30% here. Estimated property value of Massport with their 2,384 acres. They're worth close to $2 billion, Massport is. Depending upon the numbers you run online as it relates to the property value and the revenues collected by Massport using our property, it can vary anywhere from $50 to $150 million in value to that land itself. So again, people can object to that number as well, but it's very, very valuable property there in Massport. And again, they're utilizing Winthrop property for their profitability, as far as I'm concerned. In continuing on, frankly, I'm not comfortable with a 15-year contract unless that $1 million is added to it. I can tell you that right now. With additional conditions as it relates to the health of Winthrop residents, as I mentioned in some of these meetings as well. And examples of that are the monitors, the particulate monitors as well, very, very important. And the placement of those monitors as well. And again, this is all from aircraft burning lead-laden jet fuels and also rubber tire burn residuals. These are all carcinogens to the residents of Winthrop here. We should be compensated for all of the pollution generated by Massport. And many of the Winthrop residents, some of them affected negatively by these health issues themselves, and a lot of them who are no longer with us, who unfortunately have passed due to cancer, again, can't be directly tied to Massport, but Winthrop does have elevated cancer rates beyond the national level. So that's suspicious to me. How long are we going to kick these analyzers and additional issues with Massport down the road here? I recommend the town purchase a multitude of these particulate monitors, and we control the data as it relates to Massport and the pollution they throw all over this town. Again, 75% of the winds are from the west, and all of that residual comes over the town itself. If we own that data, we can then prove to Massport that there are elevated cancer rates based upon the particulate numbers that we collect. It's like pulling teeth with Massport to get any health data from them, let alone 20 years ago, we had a plant-wide, I should say a town-wide analysis done and door-to-door, and that produced nothing. Here we are 20 years later. how many people are no longer with us. So in conclusion, it's my opinion that we should be, that we would be approving this proposal under duress, whereas failure to approve it now will cost the town potentially $500,000 to $900,000. So again, we're at the 11th hour here. We have to make a decision. If not, the town's gonna be out money. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? It's a terrible position to be in as a counselor, I'll tell you that. I would have liked to be involved more with these negotiations over the last year as a council member. Contributing to this proposal 10 years. I think there was a lot to be offered by many councils here tonight. And again, we're at the 11th hour, and I think the council needs to be more involved as we go forward with a lot of these processes for negotiating with agencies and for townwide issues that should be discussed and brainstormed amongst the town council. There should be more involvement and more transparency as far as I'm concerned. So I will advocate for that as we go forward, maybe enhancing that somewhat as well. So it's time to act, and I'm tired of kicking things down the road. Thank you, Town Council President and Town Manager, Mr. Marino.
Thank you, Councilor Costigan. Councilor Tassanaro.
Yes, Council President, thank you. Thank you, Councilor Costa. That was, it's really poignant, especially with the health concerns. They're extremely valid, and they're extremely personal to every resident who lives here, because we're the ones who are gonna who live every day with the ramifications of the pollutants that really are driven by airport activity. I think what we don't wanna lose sight of, though, is this agreement we're discussing tonight is a pilot agreement versus those health concerns are something we need to start piling on to the next mitigation agreement. Because that's where we can use that as leverage against the airport for better terms in the mitigation agreement. And we can tie the next mitigation agreement to the next two parking garages they're putting up right now that we're working on. Especially when it comes to the Fern River particulates that blow this direction because of the jet stream. But tonight, I think we want to really focus on what we're working on tonight is the pilot agreement. I think the 9 of us sitting here who are going to vote really need to focus on that, and that's payment in lieu of taxes. And really, without the enforcement of Massport's own charter, they don't have to negotiate with us on pilot. They don't have to negotiate with us on the pilot agreement. That's my first question to the town manager. What leverage does the town have over Massport negotiating pilot agreement? And we can't go and throw them off the runway and rezone that for redevelopment.
No, and we can't sue them for it, you're not allowed to sue for a pilot agreement, so I mean, they have to have one with us, but they could just keep signing another 2.1 million and that would be all they're obligated to do. But they wanna be good partners with us, and Rich Davies and, Elena Coppola, the people I've been dealing with, they've been very happy that they wanna work with us, but they have their restrictions and limits, and, like I said, going up $900,000 is a substantial increase. I mean, that's,
I agree. I'm not in love with the 15-year term, but I don't want to leave $900,000 on the table today that we could have for our FY27 budget and then increase every year after. One thing I would like you to do for us and for the public, if you can, you walk us through the process that you and the town president and the council president went through to engage the advice of the consultant, what they were used for, how they did help and inform what we could do to renegotiate.
Yeah, and that was last year. It was Ron Rakow. I know there's been some discussion about that, but he basically came in and as we talked about, during the executive session and whatnot, is we did an analysis of where we were, and basically his general consensus was that the adjustments that we made in 2018-19 was really a game changer for Winthrop. I mean, we went from the 900,000 to the 1.2 and ended up at the 2.1. That was basically, and all they talk about is the consumer price index and inflation, right? Those were the numbers that they use as the barriers. And if you looked at that analysis, and I gave it to the council, which I have here somewhere, my papers, but that basically said that we were pretty much in line with, keeping up with how the property values increased and the inflation rate of the town. However, that when we went to them, we used a different analysis. We took the land, we broke it down by cost per acre, basically the value of the town of Winthrop overall, broke it down on a per acre cost, and that's what we came up with. Our initial offering point to them was, we think it's worth $5 million, maybe that was a pie in the sky number, but we went to them and
I like
said,
that.
yeah, we need, well, I did too, but, they pushed back, they had their numbers that they wanted, so that was where the compromise started. But essentially, what I have to do, sorry. Basically what the consultant said is, we look at the Massport pilot agreement over the time frame from 2005 to 2025, that went up 6.1%, and again with the game changer being it was all $900,000 payments up until 2019 when it went 1.2 and then 1.35, 1.5, 1.65, 1.95, and then ultimately 2 million in 2025. So that went up, and then Winthrop property taxes went up the same percentage, 6.1% over that same time frame. And then inflation was actually a little bit less than that. Inflation was only 3% increase over that time. And then the Massport revenue lined up, their revenue went up about 5.1%. So basically everything said, if we hadn't done that, the 900,000, we definitely would have been on pace. But the negotiations that happened, and again, remember, that was in the middle of an agreement. So, while we say we don't like the 15-year agreement, that was, 10, 15 years, 10 years into that agreement, we said, or whatever it was, a little longer, we said, hey, we're not liking these terms, we want to go back. There's nothing to stop us from doing that later. We can go back and say, okay, this has impacted us and we want to take another look at it. And that was certainly what we talked about with the council. So, if we can find other reasons, like Councilor Costa can say, we tie other things to it and we try to tie it so we can go after the pilot. Maybe it's parking, maybe it's, something else, but we can certainly look to do that, as we get into the agreement. But basically what it said was we were pretty much in line based on the factors that, Massport uses. Now, we used a little different math. Like I said, we took the value of the town, we said it's worth $5 million, and I think that's the argument we made to get to the ultimately the $3 million number. We would have still got to, where we are, starting at the 2.5, but, the council president and I said, well, he said, let's hit them up. We said, we know we want the money now, we need the money now, so that's why we went for the little less on the inflation rate, but get that $3 million now, so, we have that money earlier rather than later.
Absolutely, I think that was the right move by you and the council president to get more funding up front. Because I think that 900 now is gonna be worth more to us now
Yep.
to do projects we need to do now that we can't wait for. And thank you for walking us through that process, and I appreciate the due diligence your office did with the consultant, and appreciate his help and his analysis on that. I don't want us to lose sight of what Councilor Costigan pointed out though for the health concerns, and maybe we could use some of this additional funding to fund some of our own particulate readers. Is that what they are?
Particular readers, yeah. The gentleman that came in with, I forget the name of our gentleman, who's the the Winthrop president, I forget. No, the gentleman that's on the MAC committee. They came in and gave the presentation with Aaron Toffler, I forget his name. Jerry Fellow, right? Yeah. Yeah, so Jerry came in. The information, I reached out to him directly, and that's who gave me the link and all the additional data, because that's done, it's Massport CAC or whatever they call it. So they gave me the additional data, but he said we could buy them ourselves. They're about $15,000 and then $500 additional to, get the monitoring service, and get them
I was
ready.
gonna ask though, if we were to get those particular readers ourselves and the monitoring service, would that group help us basically compile the data in a usable way in order to go back and use that for our next mitigation agreement? Because no one on the Massport side of the FAA is gonna admit that airports have a negative health consequences, but we're all living it.
Yep.
So it would be a good use of some of this additional funding to go and make those purchases and try to expand our partnership with that Massport CAC. And
We definitely can certainly ask. That's what the council will
track that and
Yeah.
put that data together in a usable format that we can use as leverage later on to basically prove our point, which no one else wants to really admit. My last thing, I want to go back to kind of circle back to where the council president left off. I'm wondering whether the town manager, your office, and council president and this body would be willing to adopt a policy regarding pilot receipts to basically set aside a certain percentage of those pilot receipts to as dedicated debt service, so that we could really prove and we could bond off of that funding, annually, to prove that we have a recurring revenue source that can be pledged for those capital assets and improvement and investment. Is that something that we'd be amenable to? Is that something we should table for further discussion?
But, yeah, I think we should table it until we look into it, but yeah, I think that's exactly what we wanna do, is to have a financial policy in place that X percentage of, money over a certain amount, whatever it happens to be, is used for, we could look at either potentially starting a storm water fund, or we could just go for debt service for projects that have been identified and projects to come, I'm sure. We've talked about the infrastructure issues that we've had, and we have, a couple obviously that are very on everybody's mind now, and for the past few years that we're getting to the point where we would like to start them. But yeah, I think that would be a fantastic idea. I mean, that's my whole point of this, is to try to, we don't want, I mean, nobody, I can speak for everyone on the council, nobody wants to go out for debt exclusions or anything. I mean, at some point down the road, I'm sure there'll be reasons to do that, but I mean, I think if we leverage this money properly and use it correctly, I mean, it would be a huge benefit to the whole town. I mean, you don't want to pit one part of the town versus the other, like, oh, I don't wanna pay for an infrastructure project over here or over there or over there. And this helps everybody in a lot of ways, and it proves that have the financial wherewithal to be able to use the money we have in a prudent way that saves us money.
And getting that additional funding this year in FY '27 will allow us to start that process.
Well, yeah, it helps tremendously, because, if you're looking now potentially in, the end of this year or the beginning of next year to go out to bond for an infrastructure project that we might be doing, the first payment of that isn't going to hit the tax rolls probably until fiscal '28, or at the end of fiscal '28 towards fiscal '29, and that gives you a couple of years to add that up. And then you just go, and it's pretty easy to look at what a potential cost of a project would be, and it's pretty simple to figure out what the debt payment on that would be on a yearly basis, so get a really good idea of where you are.
Absolutely. Thank you. I yield the floor. Thank you.
Councilman Malat, do you have any?
There's I know that most citizens in town, think we can just try and keep asking Massport for money, and there is some misunderstanding on what the pilot is and mitigation money, and that there's separate things that are going on with it. I know when I first started trying to understand this, I didn't understand that pilot is, they don't have to negotiate. And you've said that multiple times, and they really don't. And to be able for the pilot to get the percentage that we got, I think is beneficial. Not comfortable with the 15-year agreement. I felt it should have been shorter, but I know with the negotiation with it, with 5 years wasn't, I would have been comfortable with 5 years, but I know that wasn't feasible in the discussion. So I think with the percentage that we got, yes, I think contract negotiations and everything. It would have been nice to have more understanding as it was going along. But then again, if you start putting too many people into negotiations, you got too many cooks in the kitchen, and could potentially make it worse. So that's where I do understand not everybody on the council being on this kind of negotiation thing. And utilizing consultant was good. I do wish we had a little bit more time just to kind of go over it, get maybe more details on things. I think it's beneficial, the money that they're putting up, and they were willing to negotiate the amount that we could have really lost, because they could have just said, no, sorry, we're not going for it. So I think at this point, like Max has said, this upfront money to start things going, basically, right? We need that money for projects. I don't think it will hurt us because we can go back to them as proven that it was done already once. Just a couple points.
Vice
Could
President.
I, can I
Sure.
later, if
Yep.
you don't mind?
Yep.
Thank you,
Councilor
Town
Jones.
Council President. I don't want to repeat everything that has been said, but I do appreciate that this is a payment in lieu of taxes, and a 42% increase is substantial. We desperately need the money in this budget, and I do support this negotiation. I think that on the flip side, we need to continue building this relationship. It sounds like Town Manager Marino has had a great we're building some good rapport with Massport. Maybe we continue to build upon that and we get moving in the direction with the parking garages and other mitigation monies for our parks, for the pollution, for the new windows, for the soundproofing, and we really move forward and hit that hard. So let's take the money and run to begin with, but let's really hit it hard on the other end and these other matters, and let's see what we can get out of mitigation with Massport for these other topics. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rowland.
Yes, so to pick back up where other councilors speak about mitigation, I agree with a lot of Councilor Dunn's comments when it comes to staying on mitigation. I really appreciate Councilor Castaneri's comments when I do think mitigation is obviously important and we do need to keep an eye on it, but it is separate from the pilot agreement. But while we're talking about mitigation, I just have a couple questions with how that process works. So my understanding is when there's a project that we have to go and manually ask for mitigation, right?
Correct, I believe, I wasn't here the last time, but the last week they came to us and we had to negotiate when they did the parking garages and the money ended up getting funneled to the Winthrop Foundation, correct?
So when we get mitigation money, it goes directly to the Winthrop Foundation, not to the town council?
That particular one, but not generally. I mean, to me, if there was, I mean, health is the one that everybody's talking about, right? So to me, if there was health, mitigation that we're looking for health, to me, either the majority of that funding, to me, would be funded to the health department, right? So we could address the issues that it's caused. So we're not using it to do something that's not being caused. I mean, to me, mitigation money is to mitigate the effect, to mitigate the negative circumstances that's arising, right? So to me, I would not personally want mitigation money for health-related issues to go to the Winthrop Foundation. To me, they should go to the Winthrop Town of Winthrop Health Department, so we can use that money to properly try to address the issues that it's causing. So yeah, I guess the answer to the question, if that's what the question is, all the monies do not directly have to, any potential future mitigation, go to the Winthrop Foundation.
Yes, and I totally agree with your points about, I feel like especially for the health concerns, that should be going for the town council to specifically address these health concerns. And in the past, is that how it's been negotiated?
I haven't done the mitigation was before my time, so I mean, I think that it went to the Winthrop Foundation, I don't think.
Yeah, they created.
But again, we haven't articulated like Councilor Costigan said, and you made a good point, we have to get our data together and we gotta start making the point on the health impacts, and I don't think that's been organized enough, and that's one of the things I wanna start working on is with hopefully help from many council members that we start doing that and addressing the health concerns, addressing the impact of the traffic and the noise and all that stuff, so we can actually go to Massport with, all right, here's the data, here's what's impacting Winthrop, and here's what we need to do.
Yes.
You know, those kind of things, and then keep that relationship going and start building that, so
Yeah.
we can get future mitigation.
Yeah, I think that's all important to keep in mind as well. But specifically talk about this pilot agreement, I am a little concerned about the elevation. I think that's the term. Percentage 1%. It's not going to keep up with inflation, as we all know. I know that it's the way that we get the more money up front, and I do appreciate that. I understand time value money. And you did mention that Boston's contract, it's more as of right now. But over the course of the 15 years, will it still be? Are we still getting a greater rate? What is Boston's percent increase they're going to be at?
Right now, well, every year it's a little different. They do a consumer price index and the math, but I think last year's they went up about 1.5%. And then this year, so they went from 24,600,000 or 24,900,000. It wasn't a huge increase, based on the numbers, based on the impact. Again, we took the inflation rate down a little bit to get the 3 million up front. We ended up collecting $2 million more in the long run, and then obviously the value of that money to us, every analysis I did, it's just better to get that money up front, even with the lower inflation rate, which is, but we on the second last 5 years when they said, okay, we'll do the 3 million, but we want to go to 15 years, that's obviously to offset some of their expenses, but they did give us the 1.5% with the fact that if inflation goes over 5, it'll go to 2.5%.
And when you say 2 million more, do you mean present value 2 million more, or 2 million more?
Just
You meant
gross.
2 million more over the
Yes,
lifetime.
Over the
that's
lifetime
what
of
I
the
assumed.
contract,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, just want to make that clear.
So we end up collecting more than the other
Yes.
one. Yeah.
And I also just wanted to ask, do you know the terms, how the length of other municipalities' contracts or pilot agreements, I suppose, with municipal?
They vary anywhere from 10 to 25. Boston's, I'm not 100% sure exactly when theirs ends, but I mean I got the data on what they're at today, so they didn't give us the whole copy of the contract, which we can ask for, but I'm not sure when Boston is up. We can find out that.
Yes, that's just something else we're looking into.
Yeah.
And I am a little concerned about the timeline of this. I mean, I feel like this was presented rather late to the council. I know that we've been we signed the 1-year extension about a year ago from now. And this was only presented to us first in May. We haven't been able to take a lot of these numbers home. We just got to look at it twice, had to give it back during 2 executive sessions, and then now we're being asked to vote on a 15-year contract today. It does get me a little nervous, to be quite honest with you. I mean, this could be the best Massport contract. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying I would have liked to have more transparency with the numbers. Like, I thought you did a fantastic slideshow today. I would have liked to have got that in advance in the future. Slideshows like that I think would have been really beneficial for all of us to look over.
Yep. Sure.
And
Councilor Brandon?
I do have pause with the 15 years, but mine's more related to, obviously, 10 years from now, we're not gonna be dealing with the same administration in Massport. Turnover cycle. I'm concerned with the health issues. I know they've said to you that they're targeting putting another particulate in. 2 issues, I think our health department should have major input in where these things are placed. We shouldn't leave it up strictly to Massport where they're gonna place these things.
Okay.
I think you said it was 20,000
$15,000, and then there's a $500 monitoring fee or something like that. Yeah.
And Massport's making more than that every hour of every day in parking. Right. So I think they can pick the tab up for the extras, particulate sensors, even if it's through a grant to our health department.
They are going to put a second one in by the end of the year. Like, just it's taking a little longer than I thought. They did apologize for that.
I just think, I know they like to do their mitigation through grants.
Right.
I'd like to see something in writing from the current administration that they're committing to putting some type of program together with our health department, because I think we should have at least equal control over this.
Yep.
So we're seeing the raw data, not something that they've manipulated. I don't want to say manipulated, but we're seeing the numbers the same as they're seeing.
Right, exactly.
And I'd like to see a grant, like you said. I think it should be targeted directly to the health department, because I think they're going to need to put a body on this also to keep monitoring those numbers. I know she's stretched kind of thin. I don't want to take someone away from another project to do this, because it is a major issue in this town. I don't have a problem with the numbers. I know, I know fighting with them to get the numbers. I can understand why get the money up front when the dollars are worth more. I'm okay with that. I do have concerns with the 15 years, and as I said, I think 10 years from now, if we go back to them, we're not dealing with the same people. So I think we need to keep that in mind, that relationships and promises made today, unless they're in writing from Massport, don't exist 10 years from now.
Right. Which is going to be the importance of making sure we maintain that relationship with, whether it's Rich
No,
Davies or whoever succeeds him.
I understand, but I just have a feeling that once this pilot is put through, I just want them to follow up with the particulate monitors and the health issues. If we go back to them right after this with looking at mitigation money, I'd like to see something from them ahead of time, at least a letter maybe of intent saying that, we agree that, we should open negotiations for some type of extended mitigation. I don't know if that's possible before their board votes it in. I don't know if it comes from Davies or from the board.
Yeah.
At least, not saying that they're going to do it, but at least they commit to having talks with us.
I can certainly ask, but I mean, like I said, with this agreement, they're held firm that the mitigation is not going to be.
I'm talking,
stuff like that.
Especially the particular monitors. I don't see the delay. I think these things should be going in quicker. I know they're saying there's an issue, but it's not supply chain issues.
No, I
You
get it,
these
yeah,
things in.
yeah, no, and I asked, and I said, well, you said they were gonna already be in, and that's when he apologized, and said, you know, it's going a little slower than we wanted, and we are gonna get it in before the end of the calendar year, was.
Yeah, and I definitely would like to, I think we should pick the location.
Okay.
Because.
Yeah, 'cause we talked about that on Court Road maybe and a few other places,
I mean, where you put these things is gonna affect the numbers.
Mhm.
And, if we leave it up to them, you know, they're gonna pick the place they want.
Right.
That's all.
Council Finn?
Yeah, so there's pros and cons to this, you know, every counselor before me has stated valuable information and great input, which I agree with every single one of them. It's something, the 15-year thing scares me. It does, but then again, you know, the money up front, we need it, and I get that. So it's puts me in kind of a hard place, but in the numbers you came up with, I think are fair. Do I think they can do better? I think they can. And you're saying they don't have to negotiate?
They have to have a pilot with us, they don't have to, like, they're not locked into any amount, you know, they can give us, you know, it's a payment in lieu of taxes, but they're not locked into any sort of an amount, they have to have an agreement with us in their charter, but there's no amounts. Same thing with, you know, with Chelsea and Boston and everything else, they have to have an agreement, but they, you know, obviously they've been fair over the years, they were fair in 2019, I mean, I'm sure back in 2005, the $900,000 made sense, you know, they probably thought they were being fair then, but, you know, they've been more than fair as far as working with us anyway and trying to, you know, get that number up, like I said, we went back and forth a bunch of times with it, but I think given the percentage increase, the, you know, the value per acre, I just think this is, you know, this is something the council can hang their hat on, this is good for Winthrop, you know, certainly, I mean, you may not like the length of it, but there's, you know, you can always talk to them after the fact, but I mean, I think it's,
And the percentage that's another thing, you know, given the length. After how many years does it go up?
10, first 10, yeah. Again, but remember, we did the analysis based on where they were starting, we actually, you know, we get to a little higher number there, and we end up getting more money overall than we would have, even if we got a higher inflation rate and started at their numbers, you know, we ended up getting $2 million more than we would have gotten, you know, with what they were offering, so,
Right.
with the higher inflation rate.
And like that 20-year contract, when you came in before the 20 years was up and renegotiated. Now,
It wasn't me, it was my predecessor, but yeah,
your predecessor, but
yeah.
the town of Winthrop, the
Yeah.
town manager.
Right.
How does that process go? Like, can that happen and with this contract?
There's language in that, I mean, you can, there's triggers, right, so you go back in, if we find something that's impacting it, we can go in and make the case. No guarantee they're gonna do anything, but we made the case before and we were able to make it, and we can try to make it again, no guarantee they'll do it, but you know, that will certainly be on us to
But they
have the
did-
data and the backup to do it, so.
But they did do it twice within that.
They did it
20
once,
years.
they
Once?
redid,
Okay.
2019, they redid the numbers to get to the end of 2025.
Okay. Alright, thank you, Manager Marino, thank you, Mr. President.
So, if the base case is unchanged, if indeed we have 3% inflation, they're gonna give us 1%, right? And the payment grows from 3 million to, you said 3.5?
At the end of the 15 year, yeah, 3.5 and 7.
The real value still erodes to 2.34 million. The real value, because of inflation. We only get 1%, inflation goes to 3, we actually only get 2.34 million. Is that right?
Where did the 2.3, where you're,
Because if we're only getting 1%, inflation is 3%, we get 3 million now. We still don't, we're not getting 3.5 million in today's dollars at the end, because inflation is eating into that, so it's about 2.34 million, as I understand it, by year 15.
would have to check your numbers, I didn't run the math that way, but
Check,
that's
okay.
based off of what they did on the 2.5, where they started with a 3% inflation rate.
Yeah, and then,
Yeah.
the worst is, the kicker about the last 5 years at 5%, let's say inflation is 4% in the last 5 years. Now, it's even worse, because we don't get the kicker. And now we're even paying, it's even worse if that happens in the last 5 years. I'm not saying it would, but I'm just saying. So 3%, I just think it's a bad deal. And I do think that if you could the Federal Reserve says 2%. So I don't know why, I mean, we're not getting any better deal than we got before, Tony, really. We're gonna get about the same issues as we had before. It's not that we don't get any money from them, I mean, I appreciate any money, and if you tell me, if you and your consultants say that we can't actually get any money from Massport aside from that, who am I? I have not been involved in the negotiations, you have. But I'm just saying, I think it's a bad deal, and I don't think that it's fair about a 1% increase when we know inflation, even the Federal Reserve say it's 2%. So I'm not sure why we're settling for this.
Well, again, it's the benefit of getting the additional funds, the additional 400,000, 500,000 actually up front, you know, rather the difference between 2.5 and 3
But I'm just saying
for
because
X
of
number of years,
inflation,
because you're gotta factor that in as well.
we're not doing any better than we were.
Don't necessarily agree with that, but okay.
And so that's my concern. And I mean, if my numbers are wrong, please let me know. Because it looks as if what we got before, what we're getting with them, and what the inflation rate is 3 different trajectories. And I'd like you to do the data on that, because I think we're not in good shape on this.
I'll just, a couple of things on, length was a question that a lot of people talk about, it was less than the length of the last contract. But we tend to, and I too, I guess, you tend to always think like, well, if we do 10, then we'll get more money in 10 years. We don't know what's gonna happen in 10 years, we could get less money than we get. We don't know. Talking about inflation, 3 years ago, inflation was 9%, we got 2. You just don't know. I mean, everything we're assuming is just that, it's an assumption. I look at if we, again, we're to pass this at 42% increase, if we take that money for the first 2 years, that we hopefully won't be using the vast majority of it, because any infrastructure projects that we do that would require a payment wouldn't come in until 2.5 years later. If that's properly invested and put in the right thing, we could end up making 10% on that money the first couple of years. So we don't know. What we do know is fiscal 27. We do know what $3 million is worth in fiscal 27. We know what $2.5 million is in fiscal 27. Somebody came to me and said, I'll give you $1 million now, and I'll give you 1% a year, or I'll give you 500,000 now, and I'll give you 3% a year. I'll take the 1%. If I won the lottery and they said, here's a cash payout, here's the money over 30 years, I'll take the cash payment and take my chances. You could only, and it goes back to the beginning of the whole budget conversation with Vice President Swope about what you can control and what you can't control. What I can't control is the money we have and what we can do with it and how we can best use it. We've been, again, very financially prudent in terms of retirement system, which enabled us to put our share of the Northeast, the new vocational school, and like other communities, we did not have to go for debt exclusion because we leveraged the money from being financially prudent in how we paid our retirement system off. And I think we can do the same thing here in terms of infrastructure. And it's going to enable us to knock off 3 things potentially. 3 things on this capital plan right here that when you look at funding sources, it says debt exclusions, and to be able to take that burden off taxpayers. Again, if it's like anything else, if somebody's making $20 an hour to work at McDonald's and they go out and buy a $20,000, $40,000 car, it's not financially prudent. If they go out and buy the car that they can afford, it is. So if we manage this money properly, if we are financially conservative with this money, I think it's a very wise thing to do. But again, it's 9 people, 9 opinions. Anyway, thank everybody for participating in this. Thanks to the town manager, and thanks to Massport too for working with us. We talked about this pilot agreement. We've talked about mitigation packages, and they've come through in the past on several of that. We don't talk about the day-to-day stuff that they have helped us with in other areas. And we can, over the weekend especially.
Yeah.
So, one backwash is the other in a lot of ways. And you're right, my concern with the particulate matters in the stations there is, I think it's great that they wanna do it. It's like the health studies, I think Councilor Costigan talked about at the beginning, it's like, great, they could have 10 bait stations for them. If we don't get the proper information, those stations are only as good as the information we're collecting. I'd much rather be collecting the information and able to make a case for mitigation on that than wait for them to say, we already have one station going on, we ask for information that they've gathered from that, and it's very convoluted and it's hard to understand. And I don't know how to understand it, but I mean, if we were in control of it and had somebody that knew how to understand it, they could make the case. And being able to put them in locations that we want is beneficial also, so. But I think the mitigation is a totally separate subject. And something that we have to maintain and not drop the ball on because, they came through with the foundation and again, it's, to go to institutions like creating the Winthrop Foundation and nonprofits like that, and put the mitigation money to that. I think if we get back to health concerns where we're able to put the money in our own health department, they just lost a lot of money in grants over the last 4 years that their budget basically was cut in half. And we're able to address the issues that were being heard on. So I think that's very important. So to not drop the ball at all is important. But this deal, as it stands, I feel comfortable with. We're never ever going to be 100% satisfied with everything. I'm sure they're not 100% satisfied, but.
I have a question about what you said. All right, I thought we were just talking about this deal, not about mitigation.
Yeah, this is just the pilot, right?
Okay, because how much did they give the foundation?
2.5 over 5 years, and then they
2.5 over 5. So
yeah, they give basically 500,000.
500. Okay, and then they upped it to what?
No, they re-upped it, so the 5 years is over and they continue. Right, and there was a year where they didn't pay them because they didn't have the money, and then they paid them the following year.
Well, they stopped the parking garage project was on hold during COVID, and they paid them.
Right.
And how do we negotiate that? Is that not part of our negotiation because it's with the Winthrop Foundation? We don't talk about this because
When
it's.
the foundation negotiated that, I believe, yeah.
So it's the Winthrop Foundation with Massport, is that right?
No, I think it was negotiated through the town, but it was created,
They created with the
their
foundation.
payment was to create a nonprofit for that purpose. So the town, it's basically, I hate to pick on the schools, but it's like us giving schools $100,000, they don't have to do. They have a bottom line budget, so they use that money as they wish. And I think Massport's thought was if we're gonna mitigate something, we don't wanna go into the town and have the town use it any which way they wish. We wanna go into a nonprofit that's gonna control it and make sure it's going to the benefit of the town or whatever subsection.
And so do we have any control over that or not?
On the Winthrop Foundation, we don't. I'm sure that if we've discussed with them the gymnasium, the middle school gymnasium, and looking for improvements on that and see if they might be able to help us. So they're always willing to listen to us and talk to us, but they've also helped other areas of the town. I know they've helped teachers, I know they've helped children in other programs, they've done stuff like that.
They helped us with the pickleball courts, like they've done a lot, yeah.
So they have done a lot, and they are willing to listen. Anyone can go to a meeting and get on their agenda, ask them, put in an application for a grant, and then see what happens.
Okay, I just
But
have
again,
a question. I do have a question, but in this negotiation, what I think is what they've done in the past is what they're trying to do in the future. And I don't think we're gonna get any more money than we have in the past, essentially because of inflation at 1%. That is not at all realistic. I mean, if we could get to 2%, I would be a lot happier. And I don't understand why, I mean, 1% seems, there's nothing in the data.
It was the initial payment up front that was the 1%. A handoff. Getting the more money earlier rather than later was what we were trying to do.
And if we didn't get more money, then it would be 2%?
No, 2.5, we were at 3%.
We started at 2.4 or 2.5.
Yeah, 2.5 at 3%, which got us to at the 10-year mark, got us almost the same number.
Got us to 30, well,
Yeah,
the
more,
15-year
yeah.
mark, it would have got us to 37 million and change, and the way we're doing it now gets us to 39 million and change. but it also gives us that.
But because of inflation, it doesn't really, I mean, at 1%. I'm just saying, whatever the number is, at 1%, it's, I don't know.
Council testimony.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Marino, do you have the chart that you showed us in executive session in front of you?
Mhm.
So, if you look at that chart, you look at those two agreements, the only way we were getting the, what is it, 2.5 or 3% of the, on the 2.5 million?
That was only on a 10-year deal, right? That was.
That was only a,
Yeah,
what's the percentage of that escalation on that?
the 2.5 was at 3%, correct.
And there was a 15-year for 2.5 somewhere, wasn't there?
No, we calculated the numbers out, what it would be at 3, but they didn't, they weren't willing to go.
Okay, so they weren't, so,
Yeah.
so if you look at the 10-year agreement with the 3% escalation on $2.5 million versus the $3 million 15-year agreement at 1% escalation, how many years would it take that $2.5 million at 3% to catch up to the $3 million we're gonna get today?
You don't hit 3 million until FY34.
So that's 7 years. So it would take us 7 more years just to get to today's dollars.
To get
Yeah,
to
we're
the
gonna
3
get to that.
million, yeah, it'd be 3,074,685.
Discounted for time value of money wouldn't even get us near 3 million.
Correct.
Wouldn't get us to 3 million. So we could get 3 million today with the 15 million deal at a 1% escalation instead of waiting 7 years.
Correct.
So 3 million in real dollars versus 3 million in nominal dollars 7 years from now. That's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer.
Councilor.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the time value of money points. I wish that we had both contracts were given to us before this meeting side by side, so we could have all made those calculations ourselves and we all could have been more clear about those numbers instead of trying to calculate them on the fly now. Because there's a lot of percentages that we're all trying to use.
Right.
And people are getting mixed up, so for future negotiations, just be allowed to keep those.
We did get those. We all saw them twice.
Yeah, but we had to give them back.
For 20 minutes.
He had both charts. Both charts are right there. You can see it takes us 7 years just to get to today's number with the two different agreements.
Alright.
That's your time back.
Thank you all. Very good discussion. Points. I will ask for a roll call vote.
Wait,
This is a motion. Motion by Council
Second.
Castaneri, second by Council Dines. Alright, roll call please.
Council Costigan,
No.
Council Tassinari,
Yes.
Council Milan,
Yes.
Council Dimes,
Yes.
Council Romano,
No,
Council Reardon,
Yes.
Council Finn,
Yes.
Vice President Swope. No. President Lettieri.
Yes. Motion is passed, thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
We have appointments.
You get it.
Draw the resolution.
You can have it.
We have appointments, non-policy making committee appointments made by Council President Lettieri. And these are 12 that I believe are all the appointments, just to let everybody know the way I basically do most of these appointments is there's a notification sent out to whoever's up for reappointment, whenever their term is expiring. They will either A, send in a letter of request saying, no, I don't know, like Mr. Vecchio did a couple weeks ago, would say, no, I don't wanna be appointed, yes, I would like to be appointed, or not respond. I would then ask the town clerk to go to chair people of the committees, because usually the chairperson who works with these people on a weekly or monthly basis knows more about their performance than I would know. So I asked them for their opinion, if they think it would be a proper choice to reappoint or not to reappoint, to look at attendance and such. So there are still more people that have terms expiring June 30th. These are people that either have asked to be reapplied or have been asked by us, by the chairperson, to reapply. So these are the appointments that I have made effective June 9th. Air Pollution, Noise, and Airport Hazards Committee, Hannah Belcher and Colin Kennedy. Board of Appeals, John Young and Jason Wright is advanced to a full member instead of a junior member. Board of Assessors, Peter Gale. Council on Aging, Linda Cronin. Council on Commission on Disabilities, Andrew Carr and John Morgan. Scholarship Committee, Hannah Belcher and Vanessa Flavin. The following two are policymaking appointments submitted by Council President Lettieri, that the Town Council accept the appointment made by Council President Lettieri of Christian Bonapane to the Board of License for a term to expire June 30th, 2029, or take action thereto. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Second by Councilor Tassinari. Discussion on the motion.
Yes, I'd like to discuss.
Councilor Romano.
Yes. So, I just, to keep this specifically to this motion,
Yes.
the reason we have to vote on this is because it's policy making, correct?
Correct.
Can I read the process for policy making for the charter? Okay. So, according to the town charter, policy making multi-member bodies under section 2-10, the council president shall submit to the town council the name of each person the council president desires to appoint as a member of one of the policy-making multi-member bodies, which are enumerated in section 3-2. The town council shall investigate each such candidate for appointment and may require any person whose name has been referred to it to appear before the town council or committee thereof, to give such information relevant to such appointments as the committee or the town council may require. Appointments made by the council president to the policy-making multi-member bodies enumerated in section 3-2 shall become effective if approved by a vote of 5 or more members of the town council. Now, section 3-2, which as I just read to you, are the enumerated policy-making multi-member bodies. The council president shall appoint, the section 3-2, council president shall appoint, subject to the approval of such appointments by the town council, as provided in section 2-10, which is the policy-making I read, members of the Board of Appeals under the zoning ordinance, the Board of Assessors, the Cemetery Commission, the Conservation Commission, the Board of Health, the Historical Commission, the Licensing Board, the Planning Board, and such other multiple member bodies as may be provided by ordinance. So as you can see, that the Board of License is on that list, and I believe that there are other boards I just read to you that the president classified as non-policy making. I'm not saying it's intentional, but I think even if we don't vote on those today, I would like the town attorney to look into those.
There
Make sure
is
we're following the
one,
charter.
I mean, for example, you said the cemetery commissioners, which we don't have anymore, the one that is on there that I did ask, and we can get a legal opinion, is the Board of Appeals. I personally always thought that that was a policy-making board. I was told that that's not a policy-making board, but we can withhold that Board of Appeals one until we get the, to make sure. But this is policy.
Yes, it is. I just wanted to reaffirm that. And the reason we know it's policymaking is because of section 3-2, which lists the policymaking. The charter has it enumerated. They use the word enumerated in section 2-10. So I think we all should be looking at this.
Totally understand what policy.
And also, not just Board of Appeals, the Board of Assessors is also policymaking. To according to the charter. Yeah. And I would also like to thank the council president for providing the the application for Mr. Marconi. I wish we had applications for all reappointments.
All the reappointments, we don't have applicants, we don't, because they've already on file.
I would like to see applications in the future, especially because these are usually, if I'm not mistaken, 3-year terms. I don't think there's a single councilor besides yourself that's been on here for more than 3 years. And it's also difficult for us to follow all these committees. I mean, there's so many. A lot of them don't have minutes. I looked into the appeals board. I couldn't find minutes. The last minutes I could find was October 30th, so it's hard to keep track of some of the votes that these reappointments have been making. So I think there's also, I know it's a separate issue, but it kind of isn't. We need to keep track of meeting minutes as well, which I know we talk about again and again. But for this specific appointment, I am in favor of it.
Any other discussion on the appointments, Mr. Bonapane? I'm sorry, Mr. Tessner.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanna let folks know on the council who may or may not have attended the Finance Commission meetings, but Mr. Bonapane was on those meetings. He did really well, and I'm glad to see him get further involved in town government. So that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice President Swope.
I absolutely think that, as Councilor Tassinari said, I know, I mean, yes, he did a lot of good work on it. I don't think that's the issue. I think when we all leave the council, I think we should have an application and someone who is presented him or herself to the council and why they wanna be on it, and if to make sure that there is no conflict of interest in terms of certainly the Board of Appeals and anything fiscally related, so that we have a record of that. That's all I think we talked about before. President Lettieri, it's not a question of your judgment about the people. It's a question of making sure that we have a record of everyone that we have voted on, that we have accepted, and that there's a record, because if they do really good work, we'll take credit for it. But if there's a problem, then that's an issue. So I think in the future, for anyone that you are reappointing or you are appointing, I would like to see a record of it. Thank you.
Okay, so any more discussion on Mr. Bonafante's appointment? Seeing none, roll call.
Council Costigan,
Yes.
Council Castanary,
Yes.
Council Milan,
Yes.
Council Dimes,
Yes.
Council Romano,
Yes.
Council Reardon,
Yes.
Council Finn,
Yes.
Vice President Swope,
Yes.
President Lettieri.
Yes. One more motion, that the town council accept the reappointment made by Council President Lettieri to the following policy review committee, or take any other action relative thereto. Conservation Committee, Stephen Lachinsky. Is there a second? Second by Council Dimes. Discussion, Council Romano.
Yes, in light of what I have just said about, I would like to see applications, especially for reappointments. I'm going to be using my council privilege today, and I hope we can get these applications. I don't do this just to be an inconvenience. I think it's very important for the council to have all reappointments moving forward.
Okay, Councilor Romano is uses council privileges from June 30th.
Okay, is this for all,
No, this is for this one.
just for
Yes,
Concom?
and I do want to clarify too, to make sure that we get an opinion on the Board of Appeals and on the Board of Assessments, which was also on that first page.
Okay.
Council President, I would also ask for that, it is enumerated in what is considered by our council rules, by our charter, the policy making committees, whether that's no longer true from the time the charter was written, or whether it is true. It's still in that enumerated section, so we should probably vote on it.
That's why I was always under the impression that it was policy making and was told in the last 2 days that it is not. So, I think Board of Appeals and Board of Assessments.
Board of Assessments.
Two of them, both of them.
I mean,
Yeah, so just,
I'll double check.
yes, and see and bring it back and then we can discuss. And Christian is all set, the other one is on the next agenda. Just a couple of events we have upcoming on June 13th, 12 to 4 at the Dean Winthrop House on Shirley Street. We have the Strawberry Festival, which is an incredible event. I encourage as many people to attend as possible. They do a fantastic job. Also on June 13th, competing event at 2 to 6 p.m. is the third or fourth annual. It's the Winter Pride potluck event at Ingleside Park. Again, another very good event. It's always pretty well attended. Looks like it's going to be a nice day, so I encourage people to go down there, have a couple hamburgers, a hot dog, and then go and have a nice strawberry shortcake for yourself and a little beverage after. So those two events are coming up this Saturday, and seeing no further business, I consider this meeting adjourned.
Council President, you didn't have a second session of public comment?
Yeah, this was a special meeting. It was not on the agenda. We only had one.
All right,
Sorry, John.
all right, thank you.
I think this needs to be a standard procedure for everyone.